Good evening and welcome to the show. This is the 14th episode of Toxic Masculinity, and I, Chris Coles, Mr. Reagan, invite you to enjoy the hilarity, the camaraderie, the fun, and the toxicity here today as we discuss the news and we get into the important issues like why is Kurt wearing a camo shirt? I think that's
this once before.
Have you? Yeah.
Yes.
It's just as bad this time.
Wow.
All right. So, shall we get into it, or do we have other stuff to discuss? Do we have anything interesting to tell our fellow conservative patriots in the comment section?
You know, first, can I just say, I want to say to all the birthing people, happy late birthing day.
Well, hold on. We got a meme. We've got a little joke to present here in order to set this up. I don't know why you jumped straight into that. Okay, hold on. There we go. When birthing person's day is over, families prepare for lawn mowing person's day. That's from the Babylon Bee. Jason specifically wanted me to show this to you guys so that he could set up his Happy Mother's Day remarks. I don't know why.
Hey. Why are you saying Mother's Day? Come on. Birthing people.
But anyway, that was the plan. Of course, the plan went to crap as usual. But anyway, don't know.
So you say.
That's the way it goes on this show. But yeah, so we just had Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to all the mothers that are actual women. And I called my mom. I'm overseas, so I had to call my mom, and she happened to be at dinner with one of my best friends from my childhood with his mom in Tennessee, which was a little bit weird. So I couldn't talk long because they were all at dinner. My mom, my dad, and Alice. So hi, Alice, if you're watching the show. I doubt it, but hi, and hi, Mom. Happy Mother's Day. Anyway, Kurt takes care of his grandmother full time.
I thought your mom actually watches this show. Come on, she's got better things to do.
So no, my mother definitely does not watch the show. It's a good point. Anyway, do we want to move past this and get into the news?
I just want to say I had a great Mother's Day with my wife and child. It's my wife's second Mother's Day year. Yeah, it was a great day. We barbecued, had a good American Mother's Day.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, that's you're a lucky man. Happy Mother's Day to the mother of Jason's child, his beautiful wife.
I went to my sister's house. Oh, sorry. I went to my sister's house. It's her first Mother's Day. She's got a little ankle biter that's about not even 6 months, I don't think. So,
your sister and your sister-in-law are now mothers.
Yes, correct. So we had several generations of mothers. So because my grandmother was there, my mother as well, and my brother-in-law's mother. So it was a mother fest. Definitely.
And happy Mother's Day to all the mothers in the comments section watching the show. Let's get into the news, Jason. Let's do it.
And if you're a mother they wouldn't be watching this show, but like to all the mothers that got called on Mother's Day and their children told them happy birthing person's day, it's your fault for being a Democrat and you failed as a parent. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. I appreciate that. All right, let's get to the news. Jason, what do we got?
So big news recently was in a big blue state of New Jersey. Massive crowd of Trump supporters in New Jersey ahead of Wildwood rally. So
this was
big
pretty
news.
Cool.
USA, 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 USA.
There were a ton of videos like this, actually. There was a bunch of videos like this, and the crowd seemed to be pretty dang huge. These videos and images don't really indicate it. This is probably a bad article to choose, but there were just an obscene number of people there. And here's the funny thing. So I actually posted a video about this. I could actually probably find that on my Twitter. A much more compelling number of Trump supporters.
I think it was like 80,000 that attended because they only had 80,000 seats, but there were like something like 50, 60,000 waiting outside.
Yeah, it's I was wondering how the press was going to cover this, or how the left-wing media or how the alternative media on the left was going to cover this, because I thought, wow, this is a very powerful, sexy. This is a very powerful thing, that there's so many Trump supporters all in one place, and they're in a blue state. New Jersey's like a blue state, and it was just like mobbed with people. I mean, people were coming from all over the place. Somebody posted a meme that had like the entire nation as like a crowd of Trump supporters, and it was like, this is like a satellite view of the Trump rally. It's pretty funny. I mean, it seemed like, okay, they're obviously either not going to cover this, or they're going to say something bad about it. Like, in fact, there was one report that people in New Jersey were calling up the authorities, asking them how to protect themselves against the dangerous Trump supporters, right? The funny thing about this is when they left, it was probably cleaner than when they got there, right? That's you know what I mean? Like that's sure. The difference between a Trump rally and like a Black Lives Matter event, or, you know, an Antifa type of a thing. Yeah, January 6th was a little bit more raucous than usual. But of course, that's now, they're basically like, you know, obviously they exaggerated the extent of, you know, how bad January 6th was. And now they use that exaggerated, I wouldn't even say exaggerated. They lie. They just blatantly lie about how dangerous and violent and extreme that event was. And then they pretend that every conservative event is going to be exactly like their made up version of January 6th. But
if they had been predicting this, I'm sure they would have staged some kind of like psyop BS. But they probably thought,
they didn't have enough time to set something up. You're probably right.
These are our people. That's not going to. They didn't see it coming. They were complacent somehow, and then it went off without a hitch. Like it would always go off without a hitch when it's Trump supporters, because these are just patriotic people who are not looking to burn down cities,
exactly,
like some of the supporters of the other side.
But I did pay attention to the news. And how people were reporting this. And it became this very pedantic bickering about the precise number of people at the rally. That's what the reporting ended up being. It ended up being, oh, is the MAGA estimates of the number of supporters there 100% accurate? Let's check this out. And because a lot of people were saying that there was 100,000 plus people there. That was the sort of general consensus of how many people were there. And so people would post like pictures of arena from sporting events or like a Taylor Swift concert and be like, this is 100,000 people. The Trump rally is definitely not 100,000. They're like bickering over, is it 50,000? Is it 100? It's a hell of a lot of people. All right. Like, I mean, it's a lot of people in a blue state. And this is not a rock star. This is not a rock concert. This is not a sporting event. You know what I mean? These are the things that you would expect to bring in tens of thousands of people. Try to have Biden do a rally like that. You know what I mean? Even somebody like Obama, I think, would struggle to have events this like you imagine putting Obama in a red state, and let's see how many people that he can bring in. Even at the height of his popularity, it's going to be nothing like what we got with Trump here in a blue state, the blue state of New Jersey. So this bickering over the exact precise number of people there. It was a effing lot of people. All right. Anyway, that's the
best thing. That's the best thing they could have done, because it makes them look so petty and pathetic. Where they're like, you see this, because the story is, this is New Jersey, and look at all these Trump supporters. That's the story. So they decide we're going to cover it, but we're going to like talk about how it's not really as many people as they say. It really makes them look weak. It's like when shills argue about the exact Disney Plus numbers of how many people watch The Mandalorian season 3. It's just like, okay, is it successful or not? Obviously, this is very successful. So, like, if you want to get into like the fine minutia of it, like nobody cares.
When you said it's like, I really did think you were going to present to us a hilarious metaphor, but it was just a normal metaphor. I'm very disappointed.
Oh well, I am to please.
What are your thoughts, Jason?
Speaking of disappointment, what do you have to say, Jason?
I think
that was good.
It's funny because
totally redeemed yourself.
When they couldn't really like say that like the pictures prove that how the crowds were like they have pictures from up in the sky and showing the crowd. It was huge. And like you said, it's a political event. It's not like a concert or anything. So once they realize they can't twist it to their point of view, I noticed it gone, story gone. Like I didn't hear about it anymore. You know, it's like disappeared. So I think they're scared. I think New Jersey is a red state. I just think they rig it all the time.
Yeah, it's a rigged red state. That's probably actually true. Yeah.
Yeah, because you see those crowds. I mean, come on. I mean,
or at least a purple state, probably.
Yeah, I think it leans more purple, red. But I just, from what I'm seeing, what I'm witnessing lately, I just feel like this country, there's a lot of rigging going on for many years, for decades.
I would just like to, on a personal note, I would just like to say I've been very, very sick for the past 2 weeks. Like if you've seen me on Newsmax or you've seen me on here or something, people are complaining I'm not putting videos out. It's because I was literally in bed for 2 weeks. Anytime I get up to do one of these videos, it was a massive struggle. I'm probably at like 85% now, so I'm going to start putting videos out. But I've been watching a lot of Jeopardy and other trivia game shows in order to try to recover because it doesn't, it's like I'm not doing nothing, but I can't do really much. So I'm watching these trivia game shows, and one of the questions was, if you have a swing state, it's not considered red, it's not considered blue. What color is this state considered to be? What do they consider it on the electoral map when they're doing this stuff in media? I don't remember exactly what the question was, but somebody responded, and I'm not joking. This is Celebrity Jeopardy, mind you, so it's dumb people Jeopardy. Somebody responded, a yellow state.
Because they're cowards. They can't pick a side.
Yeah.
That's
quite funny.
Are you
That's
red
quite
or
funny.
blue? I haven't decided yet. What are you, yellow?
It was the dumbest response. I thought, like,
actually, it was pretty smart.
Hi, Kurt. No, because why ring in? Why beep in? If you're that ignorant of that particular subject.
This was an art major because red and blue, yellow is the third primary color. So this is somebody that had a useless degree and did a lot of painting. And it's like, I know the answer to this. Red, blue,
that's
yellow.
Actually an interesting.
Yellow comes next. Yay!
Who was a celebrity, by the way? You remember?
It definitely was not somebody I was familiar with. Like a lot of these celebrity Jeopardy shows, the word celebrity is like very loose.
Yeah.
It wasn't anybody from Australian reality TV. So Chris was just like, I have no idea who these people are.
There are actually some celebrities on Celebrity Jeopardy that are pretty decent celebrities, like in terms of like their fame. Like they're people that I do recognize. And then occasionally get somebody on there who is like genuinely good at Jeopardy. And they absolutely obliterate everybody else on the show. And it's actually quite brutal to watch because the other contestants end up with like negative money. And that person ends up with like, $20,000 or whatever it is. And it's just like, stop killing them.
You have the rare, actually smart celebrity who's just like, why are you asking these questions for children? Just like,
exactly.
The staff behind the scene just like, they're all supposed to be dumb. He's breaking the format.
Right.
Because who's going to do that?
All right,
show? It's only going to be people who need some kind of boost to their career, people like that want to promote something, or celebrities that are like, I love Jeopardy.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Some of the people truly love Jeopardy. Some of the people truly, I think they want to show Hollywood, look, I'm not just a pretty face, I'm also really smart. And then, it's weird. I also watched like The Weakest
Link. It didn't work out
and they
so
had
well
like
for Robert De Niro, but anyway.
They had like a WWE version of The Weakest Link where they had all like and this one chick, she's an Irish chick. I don't watch wrestling, so I have no idea. But she's an attractive woman. Anyway, she absolutely dominated this game. She was like a genius. She got like every answer correct. She was killing it. And then she went on Jeopardy, Celebrity Jeopardy, and just got massacred. And I felt terrible for her because I don't know. I think there were a lot of like American specific questions, and because she's Irish, she didn't know all the answers. Like she would respond to things that were correct, but like the wording was off or something like that. And so I felt really bad because I thought, oh, this chick's actually really, really smart. And this show just made her look like a complete idiot. But she's actually quite
she's a pro wrestler. IQ, I would say. She probably could have won, but she was scripted to lose. You know, it's
maybe. It's a good point. All right, we are completely going off the rails here. This is totally unacceptable. Jason, what's our next story?
New York City. Actor Steve Buscemi punched in face, random act of violence.
Yeah, this is pretty crazy, right? This is pretty crazy. What, like, you guys got a particular view on this, or
voting? And the consequences are literally smacking them in the face now.
In New York City, yeah.
Well, the weird thing is they keep saying that crime is down. They keep saying that crime is down, but then you hear about these like insane situations because it's not just Steve Buscemi. There's like random women who are getting punched in the face and like posting it on social media and stuff like that. And like you hear about these random acts of violence all over the country, but specifically in New York. I think New York has a particularly bad problem. Obviously in Los Angeles, where I was living for 12 years, it just got more and more homeless people, more and more, openly doing drugs and this kind of stuff. We've got obviously the immigration problem with a lot of immigrants coming in. You're getting like brutal murders. Illegal immigrants are just brutally murdering people because one thing that people don't understand about illegal immigration, because I've known illegal immigrants in California for years. Like, you meet people. Some of them are legal immigrants, but if they're legal immigrants, sometimes they got an asylum that was like an inappropriate asylum, like they lied, and they openly admit that they lied. Like you'll meet like an Uber driver, and they'll just tell you this, openly.
Sure.
They have no fear of getting deported or anything, and yeah, and I've met people who have discussed with me the difference between the culture here in America and the culture where they're from. And there is essentially an idea in some of these South American countries. And I don't know if this is like the entire population. You can write me in the comment section if you don't think this is true. But there's this idea like, if you're not taking advantage of a situation, then you're just dumb. Right. Mm-hmm. So if like you can exploit the system in some way to make money off of it, if you can steal from people, like if people are dumb enough to like leave their whatever motorcycle unattended with the keys in it and you don't take it, you're an idiot, that kind of thing. Right. Like there is a culture in many of these places of like, you should be committing crime. And if you're not committing crime, you're just dumb. Right. That is obviously very different than our culture here in America. Our culture here in America, at least traditional white American culture, is you should act with integrity, right? If you commit a crime, you're a bad person. And that obviously, that cultural sentiment is not shared by everybody in this country.
No.
And so I've often said, like, look, we need to prioritize people who have a cult that are culturally similar to America, right? That have that have similar values, have a similar history. And that would typically mean white Europeans. But if we say we want to bring in exclusively white Europeans or predominantly white Europeans, the left is obviously going to scream and go, that's racist, that's racist, that's racist. We need to bring in more brown people, whatever. And then crap like this happens. Obviously, we have a problem with the prosecutors, with like the George Soros funded prosecutors that genuinely believe in racial justice and don't want to prosecute black people for committing crimes. Like, a lot of the time, like that woman who was, she had like a belt thrown around her neck, and then she was like taken behind these cars and like sexually assaulted by this guy, and he had all these prior criminal convictions. He had committed all this other crime, and it's like, at what point do we say, okay, you know what? We actually have to start prosecuting these people, putting them in prison for like long stretches of time. This whole idea of,
well, in Democrat cities, never.
Yeah, it's just madness. And I don't, frankly, I think that Democrat voters are getting sick of it. Dame Piglet did jump in with a pretty funny comment. She writes, "Did Steve Buscemi look better after the punch?" That's a little hardcore. We love Steve Buscemi. I don't know really what his politics are, but I've always thought Steve Buscemi was. I think he deserves the accolades that he gets. I think he's a pretty phenomenal.
There's an
talent.
actor who got by on talent alone. No doubt.
Exactly. Well, I've often said that you'd have to be watchable to be a movie star, and that doesn't necessarily mean looking like Cary Grant. It could mean like looking like Steve Buscemi, just so long as you have presence on screen. And I always use Steve Buscemi as the example of that for obvious reasons.
And you use Cary Grant as the example of a handsome actor? What are you, like 90?
Well,
he's no Cary Grant, but he can look at my ankles anytime.
There's not. I don't think there's a ton of actors that currently exist that are known exclusively for being handsome. There's Brad Pitt, Clooney,
George Clooney,
Brad Pitt. Yeah, okay, those two. In the 80s, there was Tom Cruise. He's kind of, I think, fallen out of favor in terms of like being famous just for being handsome. Now he's more famous for just being the action-y guy. Jumping out of airplanes and stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. White Jackie Chan. But then if you go back further than that, you get into like the 60s and stuff like that. And I think Cary Grant in the entire realm of cinema is probably the actor that is best known for being charming and handsome.
Okay.
That's why I use that. But thank you for picking me up on that stupid point.
A guy that's 20 years older than Sean Connery who's been dead for several years. That makes sense.
It is weird that we don't have any actors that are considered charming and handsome, and that's like why they're famous. It's like they stopped picking actors for that reason.
Yeah, I think the last one was McConaughey. To actually,
McConaughey was definitely like a charming, handsome.
Like, yeah. And now he's like older than us, which means he's almost dead. Anyway,
they're probably still trying. They're probably still trying to bring in actors for that reason, but I think maybe because a lot of guys today are effeminate, it's not really working so well.
Well, they're trying, but they think that those actors are Idris Elba and Pedro Pascal. Like they don't want it to be a white guy, so they're just sort of like always railing against what everyone thinks and just being like,
well, they have brought up this guy,
like this, bigots.
They have about this guy Shyamalan or something like that from Dune. This kid, and people keep giving him a lot of crap. I'm not really sure,
something like that. Yeah. But he's like one of these boyish types. He
looks boyish. I don't think that
dresses to premieres and stuff. He's not going to
right. I don't know if he deserves all the crap that he's getting as like this is the new standard of masculinity. I think there's always been sort of like the boy band look. Mm-hmm. I kind of had that look a little bit when I was a teenager, so I feel a little bit like attacked slightly whenever they go after this kid. But yeah, I mean there should be. I think actually the guy that is considered sort of like the handsome cool guy of today is what's his name? Guardians of the Galaxy, Chris
Pratt. You think?
Chris Pratt, yeah, but he's not at the same level as you would expect, like a McConaughey or somebody like that. This is we're going off on a really weird tangent. But I like the movie business, and I like to get into the heads of the producers and try to figure out what they're thinking, because this may be one of the reasons that Hollywood is failing. Right? Is because
we've got a new format for the podcast now. It's men on men. No one could possibly
okay. Whoa, Kurt, come on,
for something else.
careful the way you phrased that.
What? It's totally.
That didn't sound right.
Where your mind was going.
Yeah, men on men. What's going on?
Well,
we're just going to rename the podcast.
That's fine.
We're just going to rename the show Men on Men. No big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Men on Men.
Maybe we can incorporate the word action in there somewhere. I don't know. Just throwing it out there.
Hey guys, I'm in the middle here. Okay, so come on.
Look, I do try to think through why Hollywood is failing, though, and I think that the lack of a willingness to bring in, I think, the kind of leading men that the world really has always preferred. I think that's probably a major part of the demise of Hollywood. All right, Jason.
So we jump straight to Doctor Who and stick with that theme.
Can I just say something about somebody's comment?
Yeah.
Please.
Franklin, Kirk, kick these bums off your podcast. I have no I have no problem with that. But Franklin, it's unhoused. Okay, use the right words.
These
I
unhoused
must have missed it.
people.
Oh,
all right.
Now I get.
Shall we go to the next? Shall we go to the next story?
Yes. So this story is very interesting. I think it's a deep question. China uses AI deepfake technology to replicate deceased loved ones. A new trend is report.
You missed a story, but we'll go with this one.
Did?
That's fine. Yeah. You missed the Biden fundraiser.
Anyway, so yeah,
which would have been a great transition, actually.
Huh?
Which would have been a great transition since we were talking about leading men, but whatever.
With AI technology, we can look forward to 20 more years of Biden because he'll be deceased any minute now. That's not a threat, YouTube. Just an observation.
Well, anyway, this is kind of a weird thing where they're using AI. So they're going through people's lives on social media, and they're programming AI to try to mimic how that person would talk in real life, and then you could like text with your dead mom or whatever. To me, this is like the creepiest, weirdest thing I've ever heard of. I would never want to do this because you're not actually talking to your mom. You're just talking to nothing. I mean, you're talking to sort of like a copied, distorted version of your mom. But the thing is, now, especially if they use images, if they're able to figure out like images and photographs and stuff like that, and use that, then you're going to have this new version of your mom. Like, people change over time. You know what I mean? Like, when I was a little kid, my parents were one way, and today they're, I would say, very different people. I remember what my mom was like when I was a kid. I remember what my mom was like when I was a teenager, and I know what my mom is like now. And I have some pretty distinct memories of my parents that I wouldn't say they're contradictory, but they definitely aren't necessarily the same people. But like over the course of your life, the old versions do kind of get erased, and they just kind of become a memory, a faint memory, I would say, even in some cases, because you have the new model to talk to and to interact with. If, in fact, you were to, because AI is naturally going to distort what the person's like. So you're going to carry on with that evolving person. Now, presumably, they're going to take, it's going to be probably even a little bit more like what they used to be than if they were actually alive and evolving. But it's still going to be a distortion. Now, do you want some like computer program distortion of what your dead mother is now like? And so you have these new interactions and these new memories that aren't really real. I don't know. To me, this is horrifying. I don't know. That for me, I would never want anything like this. This is disgusting, frankly.
Yeah, it's a moral question. I think doing something like that is kind of like will mess people's mentality up. Like, you're supposed to have a time of grieving and let people rest after they die. Like, just you're supposed to have that period of just coming to grips that your loved one passed away, and if by doing this, you're not letting that go, it's I think it'll just fester in you and grow in you, and it'll just mess you up mentally. And yeah, it's freaky.
Have you guys ever played the video game Grand Theft Auto 5?
I haven't played any of them.
A major aspect of that game is, you play this like bank robber guy, and you also play as his psychopathic partner. And they have a third bank robber partner who the psychopath thinks is in prison, but the Mike, I think his name's Michael. Michael knows that he's actually dead, and this FBI guy that Michael has been working with has been sending letters from this dead partner, bank robber partner, to the psychopath to make him think that he's still in prison when actually he's been dead this whole time. And when the psychopath finds out that he's been tricked this whole time, he goes mental. He goes ballistic. And a big aspect of the story of this game is that this guy thinks that his former partner is still alive because somebody's writing letters, which is very similar to this AI situation. Like, I don't know, like if somebody that you really, really cared about died, and then somebody else was writing letters to you, pretending to be that person, like you said, Jason, that's going to like F you up psychologically. You've got to grieve and accept that that person's gone. And if you're getting fake letters from that person, I don't know. To me, it's sort of like, you know what it is, actually? I just realized it's a great analogy. It's sort of like transgenderism, right? People want to believe that there's something that they're not. They want to believe something that isn't true. So they just indulge in this delusion, right? And I guess it's a little bit different in the fact that, like, hopefully the people who are indulging in the AI delusion of their dead relative is actually fully aware that the relative is dead, and they're just sort of playing this as like a game. Like, let's play the my relative is still alive game. But really, it's kind of analogous in the sense that they are indulging in a fantasy, and they're doing so as part of like their real life. I think it's a little bit too. I'm not saying it's something that should be illegal, but I don't think it's something that should be encouraged. I think it's something that should be discouraged, similar to the transgender thing. I don't think transgenderism should be illegal, but I think it should be discouraged massively.
I think the other issue is the Chinese government. I think in the article it mentioned this, which was a good point. The Chinese government can manipulate people through that. You know, like you could actually manipulate your the citizens of your country. You know, because you're grieving at the moment.
Right. That's kind of the point I was making about the video game. Like, in this story of this game, they're manipulating this guy. And when he finds out, he kind of flips out. But yeah, exactly. Your government could manipulate you based on what it's actually. Do you remember this story, Kurt, that I did like this? I did this story where this guy meets this chick. And this chick is this is like set in the future. And this chick is this is actually this is one of my great short stories. It's like a future in which there are androids, but androids aren't very humanistic. They're more like C-3PO. They're like painted gold, and they're not like perfect. And so they like serve you lunch at like Starbucks or whatever. They're like baristas and shit. I shouldn't swear, sorry. But anyway, the point of the story is this guy meets this girl, great girl. Very, very like way out of his league, but she likes him for whatever reason, whatever. And not only does she, but she's not the kind of girl that like wants him to spend money on her necessarily, although she does have very expensive tastes, but she actually encourages him to spend money on himself. So she's like, these are the brands that you should buy. You ever meet a girl like, I mean, I think we've all met somebody who like has better taste than us or fancier taste than us, and they like introduce us to new kinds of brands and stuff like this. So this girl's all about brands. This girl's all about brands, and she's all about like, he should wear this. Like, people will respect you more if you drive a Mercedes, and you should drink this brand of soda, and you should definitely like use these specific brands. And this guy always thinks this is a little bit materialistic, but he likes this girl so much he like is willing to let that go. So he's dating her for a while, and then he realizes this chick's cheating on him, and he approaches her and says, you know, what's going on? You're seeing this other guy, whatever. And she's like, oh yeah, we were never exclusive. And she's like, look, yeah, I'm dating a couple of other guys, and if you have a problem with that, we can break up, but I would still like to date you. So now he's got to work out how to keep this girl and get her away from these other guys, or should he break up with her or whatever. So as the story progresses, he figures out that this chick is actually a very, very highly advanced android, and the company that made her has basically created her as an advertising bot. So this robot, they've made deals with other companies, and she encourages the guys that she dates to buy certain products, and that's her entire job. And this guy figures out, sort of like the They Live glasses, he figures out that there's these certain glasses that the company is created for their employees, that if you put these glasses on, you can see the eyes of the androids glowing. And he goes in this cafe one day, and he wants to make sure that he's right about this chick being an android. So he puts the glasses on, and of course her eyes are glowing. But then when he looks around the cafe, everybody there is with somebody whose eyes are glowing. Every single person there is dating one of these robots, and they're all advertising to them different products. So he takes the glasses off, and he's got to figure out whether he's going to expose this I guess conspiracy or whatever, or break up with this android chick or whatever. And she says, "Do you want to go get ice cream?" And he's like, "Yeah, Haagen-Dazs." And she's like, "Of course, Haagen-Dazs." And then they just like leave together, and he throws away the glasses, and he basically decides to stay with the girl because even though he's being lied to, he's enjoying living in the delusion of
I always like that story.
Yeah, I love that story. Anyway, I probably shouldn't have told it on the live stream. But
you could make so much more money. What you were supposed to do there is like, you want to find out what he decides, you have to subscribe for premium content. My super channel.
I know. Yeah, I shouldn't have gave away the ending. But we got a super chat here from Lauren Smart. Thank you so much, Lauren Smart. She says, "I'm glad you're doing live shows again. Love it." Well, thank you so much. Look, the point is that, like, I do think that there is a certain level of delusion that we enjoy. Like, even just watching a TV show, I figured out a long time ago that there's certain TV shows that the characters are so compelling and fun that they're actually better than most people's real life friends.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's why a lot of people watch the show Friends, right? It's because they don't have friends in real life that they like as much as the characters on the show Friends. So these become their real life friends. Like, you get people.
Not everyone's as lucky as you, Chris.
I know. I have two of the greatest guys right here. But excuse me. There's a certain, I think, percentage of the population, and it's growing, percentage that doesn't really have a lot of good real life friends. Like, I certainly don't have a lot of really good real life friends, at least not where I am traveling right now. And so you watch TV and you can hang out with people as if they're your friends, but they're really not. You know, they don't know who you are. You're just watching them pretending you're part of the gang, when actually you're just by yourself in bed watching a show with other people doing stuff.
Hey.
You know what I mean?
Easy, Chris. That's the whole audience we're trying to cultivate with this show. What are you doing?
I know.
Stepping on our necks here.
You're all our real life friends, I would say. Well, actually,
that's more like it.
That's a good thing about social media, is that if you throw in a super chat, we are actually real life interacting with you in real time, which is, I think, an advantage.
If you pay us money, your
media.
dead grandma will love you more, is what we're trying to say.
What the hell? Kurt's mind works in bizarre and
that if you give us
sometimes
money,
horrific ways.
Make her happy. It's a riff on the AI thing, the dead loved ones. Do you have to spell everything out for you? Right. Come on.
Anyway, what do you guys think about delusion and living in a fantasy reality, which people are doing with their whole, like, other kin, pretending they're dogs and stuff like that? The world seems to be transitioning more and more into a world in which we all live in our little kingdom, where anything we want to be true is true, and we don't have to actually face reality. I don't know. That's what I think.
Kurt?
Okay. I was going to throw it to you, Jason, but very well.
I'm thinking is that why aren't we making this movie, Chris? Right? People.
He's like, this story is so damn good.
Convince Chris to start a fundraiser so we can raise some money and make a movie. Wouldn't you guys love to see a movie by Chris?
This is the tragedy. This is the tragedy of Chris's life. He goes and he tells these stories to people to see if there's any interest. There's a good story, and they lose their minds. And then he goes to the money man, and they're just like, meh. You know, the public, the chasm between the public and the people
that's true,
that are safer doing nothing than taking a chance on something will always be, you know, something that.
Jason, have I told you that story before?
I don't think so. I don't think you told me.
I never threw you that one. Yeah, it's a pretty good one, right? Yeah, the weird thing is in Hollywood, Kurt and I were in Hollywood for quite a while. I was there for 12 years. And I occasionally would pitch some of my movies and TV show ideas, whatever. And the people I would pitch to would, like, legitimately lose their minds. Like, I didn't get a lot of opportunities to pitch, but when I did pitch, they would be like, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life. And then they would go to their money people, and their money people would just be like, I'm not reading this. They, like, I guess maybe because I wasn't well enough connected, or I'm not really exactly sure what the deal was, but they would always come back to me being like, the person that I wanted to show this to, they wouldn't even look at it. They wouldn't even talk to me. Mm-hmm. And it's really weird. Like, and I have gotten negative feedback occasionally on a project. Like, somebody's gone, oh, this is really, really great. But I try to pitch it to somebody else and they didn't like it. And so I don't know if like my stuff is kind of hard to pitch sometimes, or if it was just because I was a straight white man, or if they just didn't, I just wasn't connected enough or whatever. But we got Eric Wade jumping in here. He says, I came to this Livestream because I wanted to have friends. Well, you're our friend, Eric Wade. We love you. Thank you for the $20. And honestly, like, you know what's really funny about the super chats? We obviously need the super chats to keep the show going. And so we're obviously trying to incentivize everybody to throw money at us. But a lot of the comments that you guys pitch us, because we don't always just read the super chats, but just the comments in general, but the super chats in particular, you guys are, I think, one of the smartest audiences, one of the best audiences. I've always felt this way about my subscribers. And I think part of it is the fact that YouTube does not allow people to see my content if they're not already conservatives. You know what I mean? If they're not already the kind of people that are going to like this kind of content. So I've been kind of, it's bad in a way because I would like a bigger audience, of course, but it's kind of lucky in a way in that the community that I've been able to cultivate here on Mr. Reagan is, I think, literally like the best fans on YouTube. You guys are like the best people, the smartest, the most charming, the most insightful, all that kind of stuff. Dame Piglet jumps in. Hello, friends. I'm drinking coffee from my Toxic Masculinity mug. Be cool like me. Oh, that is awesome. Dame Piglet, if you send me a photo, I will go ahead and post it on the next live stream. I forgot to send you guys. I was supposed to send you guys.
Where's my mug?
I'll send it. Also, I forgot. I've been sick. All right, guys. Thank you.
You complain about me wearing the camel shirt, but I think on episode 2 or thereabouts, I was asking for a Mr. Reagan shirt, and none has arrived. So.
Oh yeah, sorry. Okay, I'll send you guys some merch. Dave Piglet, I love the fact that you got a Toxic Masculinity mug. I don't have the link up here, otherwise I'd show you guys, but that's awesome. Our Toxic Masculinity mugs are pretty cool. Go to our Teespring site in the description below and check those out. Anyway, do we have another story? You guys want to comment on the AI creepiness?
I have a comment. So
all right.
Sort of smart. Oh yeah, Mike Melina commented, "The internet has destroyed civilization," and I think that's something that they were talking about from the time that the internet started up. And we're in a age now with technology where things are just sort of like so rapidly advancing with the iPhones and everything and social media, and it's really like a boom time. Probably we haven't seen since like, you know, 100 years ago when we had like automobiles and things, like the Industrial Revolution. It's like such a big technological revolution. So the culture is sort of like struggling to keep up with that. So not only was it the internet that was kind of big 20 years ago or so, now we've got AI. AI is changing the face of business. And I think with China and this whole deepfake thing, Jason, you had a great point about how they can sort of like, you're in an emotional state, they can sneak things in where they're like, oh, you know, like, yeah, you know, you're vulnerable, and they say like, do this, do that, just sort of nudge you a little bit, maybe even subconsciously, like you're almost in a state where you're hypnotized because you're so emotional and you're so vulnerable in that moment. And I think that there's a lot of talk too about things like OnlyFans is going to go away because the AI technology and everything is going to go to the point where you can just sort of like, you know, deep fake whatever, and like we don't need real women. There's going to be like
deep fake porn.
There's going to be like, you know, there's going to be actually like your Twilight Zone style story where it's going to be like, well, we don't even need real women, and we're seeing this shrinkage of the population because marriage is going down, birth rates are going down, all this stuff is happening where this society is changing very much, very rapidly.
I want to think about this actually, because I made that story up, and the concept was trying, like the ending of the story was meant to sort of create almost, it's like a warning about human nature, right? It's about a warning about human nature that we are willing to accept a delusion that's nice enough, regardless of the fact that we now don't live in reality. But it wasn't so much a comment on the direction of the world. It was more a comment on the impulses of a certain percentage of the population who are totally willing to like live in fantasy. But the more I think about it, the more we talk about this, the more I realize like that's kind of the direction that the world is going. Like, if you converge our willingness to allow people to live in a delusional fantasy world, and we combine that with our desire to influence people to buy certain products and services and to vote a certain way and whatever, you actually really do have this potential for this sort of destructive dystopia where everybody lives in their own fantasy world. But the reason that they're allowed to live in that fantasy world, or the fantasy world facilitates this manipulation of people. And I feel like we're this way with everything. Like a lot of people look at the transgender movement as hugely beneficial for the pharmaceutical industry and the medical community, because surgeons and pharmaceutical companies have lifelong patience if they can convince you to be trans. And you can also get, like, Kurt makes this made this observation a long time ago about abortion, but it's also true about transgenderism. If you can convince a woman to kill her child, you get a lifelong Democrat, because they will never want to accept that they killed their child. So they will always, they are now cemented into this idea that it was just a cluster of cells. And because conservatives don't believe that it's just a cluster of cells, you can never be a conservative. So they've created a lifelong Democrat by convincing a woman to commit an act of murder to her child. In the same way, I think that if you can convince a transgender person to have some kind of irreparable surgery or hormone therapy or something else that will destroy their physiology, or even if you can convince some guy to commit a homosexual act, then oftentimes I think that person feels that they are now completely and totally committed. They have sacrificed too much. They are completely enveloped in the Democrat philosophy, and they can't shift out of it because they've given up too much of themselves. They have committed themselves physically to this sort of sexual deviancy.
They're past the point of no return.
They're past the point of no return. I think that's a Democrat tactic. If you can convince somebody to do something that would psychologically devastate them to realize was a bad thing to do, but you can keep them in the fold by saying, no, we respect you and appreciate you for having done this thing, then they feel like they have nowhere else to turn, because they feel like they'll be judged if they go to the conservative side because they've done
very
something
much
that's completely
like the
irrational.
antithesis of like the conservative side, where you have people that are addicts or people that have a bunch of trauma in their life, and they have like a come to Jesus moment. And a lot of these 12-step programs and things like that are basically like you adopting Christianity, and then it makes your life better. Like you realize that you're living your life in the wrong way, and so like then you fix that. And the leftist liberal philosophy is kind of like the godless philosophy is basically like, oh no, like you need to it's the world that's wrong. You know, if everything is actually good, just keep chugging along, you know, in this vein, and you'll figure it out. Or if for some reason you're not enjoying this choice that you made, well, it's because those bloody Christians and those conservatives are like shaming you.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It's just like,
I'm curious if people agree with this. Like the Democrat left, and I think more the sinister aspects of our society, and also even the capitalist economy. If you can manipulate somebody to do what you want by allowing them to live in a delusion, I think that's becoming an acceptable payoff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There was an interview with Keanu Reeves. I think it was fairly recent, and he had to explain the Matrix to some Gen Z person, because the Matrix movies are from like '99. They're like 25-year-old movies, which is crazy. I feel like I'm about 85 years old thinking that the Matrix movies are 25 years old. The first one anyway. But yeah, so he's like, oh, you know, it's like this guy is in a computer simulation. And he finds out that he is, and then he has to, like, you know, go in the real world and like get these other people. Like, so he explains it to this teenager or whatever. And the person is like, basically like, oh yeah, well, I would totally stay in the simulation. Like, why would you want to leave the simulation if it's so much better than the real world? And the interviewer asked Keanu Reeves, like, well, what did you think about that? And he was like, I thought it was awesome. I was just like, okay, Keanu Reeves, I want to like you, but apparently you're a hippie moron. Like, do you think it's awesome that the generation that's coming up is just like, yeah, I want to live in a fake world if it makes me happy? I can't hear you. Something's wrong.
Yeah, I can't hear him. Chris, your volume's out.
Sorry, I was eating an apple. I muted myself and I clicked it off, but it didn't click off. It didn't click off correctly. Yeah, no. It's interesting that we use the analogy of red pill to wake up and to realize that we're not, that we're living in a simulation or that we're living in
the
delusion.
Most leftist people in the world are called woke. Like that. Kind of confusing. Isn't
Well,
it?
it actually is. It actually makes a lot of sense because woke is grammatically incorrect. So they've chosen this grammatically incorrect term. It's like even that is wrong.
But it sounds street.
It sounds street. Well, that's what it is, and it's the delusion that being street is good.
Right,
like everything.
You're supposed to want to elevate yourself in that station. Not supposed to want to be a McDonald's employee that makes $20 an hour. Like, yeah, I'm killing it. I'm making $20 an hour.
Yeah,
You
or
want
a drug dealer.
I'm so cool.
Exactly.
Like, no, you're supposed to be a teenager when you're serving fries, and then you're supposed to advance your station, not make a living wage off of
well,
that.
But I think it's funny that the word that they use to wake up is grammatically incorrect. It's like even that
poetic.
Like that lie is told through improper grammar, which I think is absolutely perfect. All right, let's move on to the next thing. I think we've spent a little bit too much time on this. What do you think, Jace?
Yep. Biden to host Hollywood elite fundraiser with George Clooney, Julia Roberts, Barack Obama.
Yeah, I don't know if this is like a huge huge shock to anyone. I mean, this is typically how things are. I was talking to this guy the other day. I forget his name, but he was in the movie The Fugitive. We reviewed the movie The Fugitive. Gorka and I did on Make Movies Great Again the other day. And we had one of the actors come on who's a great conservative guy.
You're good friends with Sebastian Gorka. We all know this, Chris.
Well, I do a show every week with him. And we had this guest on who was an actor from the movie. Damn it, I should have grabbed his name before I came on the air. I forgot his name. But cool guy, real conservative guy. And I asked him if he noticed as I've noticed, that a lot of people in Hollywood seem to be shifting a little bit more right and be willing to vote for Trump and stuff like this, but they don't talk about it openly. And he didn't really notice that as much, I don't think. He was just like, well, a little bit maybe, but he didn't seem to be too keen on the idea. So there definitely does seem to be this ingrained leftism in Hollywood that doesn't seem to be changing maybe as much as I thought it was. I do think it is shifting a little bit, but it is weird to me. So I guess the big question I have, because I don't know if it's possible to actually be delusional enough.
This looks like him, Daniel Roebuck.
No.
Oh, goddammit.
No, it was from The Fugitive. It was the guy that played the sort of local police captain or whatever it was. I think I talked to you about it, Kurt. But anyway, Biden to host. But the thing is, like, I feel like these lefty elites in Hollywood, there's one of two things going on here. And I think some of them are true believers, because there's a couple of things that leftists in Hollywood they seem to be obsessed with. The LGBTQ plus thing, because there's a lot of gay people in Hollywood and they have their friends and they want to like support their friends. The abortion thing, that it seems to be huge because they're all like hardcore feminists and they want to virtue signal about that. And climate change. They seem to all be obsessed with climate change in Hollywood. And again, that's about virtue signaling and showing that you care about the world and all this bullcrap. So those three things tend to indicate to me that Hollywood leftists are true leftists. But I can't help but to wonder what percentage of these guys have involved themselves in Epstein Island-like activities, and are then compromised and are recruited to be part of this sort of thing. Because like people like Rob Reiner, like this guy isn't just like selling it; he's like obsessed. And I don't really like the level of involvement that these leftists seem to have with trying to support Joe Biden, trying to be anti-Trump, all this kind of stuff. It seems so far, so extreme, that it seems to me to be like irrational. It seems to be on a level where they're doing something that they could just shut the hell up and get on with their lives. But instead, like Mark Hamill going to the White House the other day, like what the hell was that about? Like that's completely pointless. Like there's nothing. How does that benefit him unless he's just like genuinely like so left, which I don't get. I don't get how you can be that left.
Well, Mark Hamill followed up The Last Jedi with being the dad in the Burt Kreischer movie, so I guess he figured he would never work again unless he started playing ball.
Well, that could also be true. There could also be this idea of like, if I, and that does happen sometimes, like in particular industries. I think like if you want the boss to like you and the boss likes racquetball, you become obsessed with racquetball. I have another story about that. It's called
That's a good point.
Checkmate,
politics infects every
I won't tell
industry.
Yeah. And so sometimes you do want to sort of suck up to the boss, and maybe there are people in Hollywood that Mark Hamill thinks that he needs to get along with by being as openly left as he is. So that is a possibility. But I do worry that some of these people are Epstein level compromised. I don't know. What are you thinking, Jason?
It's just this is just a money grab. They always seem to go back to the Hollywood actor thing. It's like it doesn't work anymore. This is just for money because they're not going to get money any other way. And by the way, it's not Biden to host. It's Barack Obama to host because it's his third term.
It's true. And Biden can't really talk anymore.
This is actually perfect because you have who's supporting Trump. It's the people. It's the actual people. Who's supporting Biden? It's all of the figureheads. It's all these people like The Rock. The Rock is catching all the flack right now for being a phony. These people in Hollywood, they're professional phonies. What is Joe Biden? He's a puppet. So of course they're going to support their own. It's like the puppets being trotted out to support the puppets. And
you know what's sad? Real quick, I'm going to interrupt you real quick because I've worked in Hollywood for a long time. Not at a high level, but at a very low level. I worked in Hollywood for a long time. But you do meet a lot of celebrities. You do meet a lot of people. And look, I have respect for anybody who's successful, more or less. Okay, there are some people that I look at and I think you got really lucky. And Hollywood, I think, probably has a higher percentage of lucky, successful people than anywhere else.
It's not luck. It's called the casting couch.
Yes, or people that are otherwise connected and pushed forward, like Army.
Exactly. You've got the nepotism. You've got the casting couch. You do have instances of just people being lucky. I mean, for sure. Trust me. And there's also, of course, the sort of diversity, equity, and inclusion aspect of everything. I did have a friend. It was funny, actually. There's this girl named Crystal. I forgot her last name, but I met her. You can do these things in Hollywood where you go in front of a casting director and you pay actually to go to meet a casting director, and you just read from a movie script or something, and you present yourself as an actor. And actually, those were a lot of fun for me. I did a bunch of those, and casting directors, they were just like, oh, you're like, but I did this before I was SAG, so they couldn't hire me for anything, which was unfortunate. I should have done it again after I got SAG. But anyway, I was doing these little casting director interview things, and it was great. It was a great ego boost because I was always pretty good. Like the thing is, like I often say, like I was a very good actor, and the reason I knew that was not because I was particularly talented, but because you would go into a class, you'd go into these casting director workshops or whatever it was, and you realize almost everybody else was terrible. Like it's a really weird place in Hollywood where you get these people with these big dreams of being a big actor, and then you watch them perform, and you're like, "This is not going to happen for you, my friends." Like, what are you thinking? And there was this girl named Crystal who I did the casting director workshops with, and I only met her for one day, but I instantly knew she was going to be a star. Because one, she was very beautiful. Two, she was actually a good actress, which was very unusual. I very rarely met people who were actually good actors who were trying to start out in Hollywood. And three, she was black. She was black. And I was like, you're a black woman who's a good actress in Hollywood. You're an attractive woman. You're going to be a star. And now she has her own show. She has her own freaking show.
Plot twist. She was black.
Well, yeah, it's not a huge plot twist, but she has her own show. She's the star of her own show now. And of all the people I met in Hollywood that were sort of up and coming or were not yet successful, and I was meeting them and going to auditions and stuff, yeah, she was the one who I knew instantly. She's going to be a star. And she now is a star. And why? Because she's a black woman. Was she the best actress that I met? No. Was she the best, Was she the most attractive? No, but she was attractive and she was a good actor. And she was black, and you knew that people were going to gravitate to her for that reason.
Yeah, the X factor is now the diversity factor.
That's diversity factor, yeah. But I mean, she definitely deserved it. I mean, I would have hired her if I were trying to produce a project, and I needed somebody that looked like her. I would have brought her in for sure because she was actually good enough. She should have been successful, and she was. But yeah, I mean, but the truth is, most people who are successful in most industries do deserve some respect because they are hard workers, they are talented, they are people who
except politics.
Yeah. But in Hollywood, there is like quite a few people. But here's the weird thing about Hollywood. What you learn really quickly is that the reason people go to Hollywood and they know they can succeed is not necessarily because they are they aren't necessarily the guy that you think they are when you meet them. That's the crazy thing about Hollywood. So like I've met so many actors who they sort of command respect. Like they speak really, really well. They have a really good look. Like I knew this one guy who always got car commercials, right? He was this tall, very handsome guy, white guy. He was probably in his like late 40s. And he was the kind of guy who in like the 90s, they would have always cast in car commercials. And that was like his bread and butter. Now they only cast people of color. But they used to cast these like 50-year-old white guys because they wanted to evoke the sense of like you're wealthy, you drive a Lexus, you know, you're a middle-aged white guy, you're handsome, you're cool, women love you, you drive a Lexus, you know, this kind of thing. And so he would get these car commercials. That was how he made money, essentially. I mean, he was always getting these car commercials. He doesn't get that anymore. And he spoke really well and he sounded really intelligent. But if you talk to him for more than 10 minutes, you realize he was an idiot. Like literally, like so low IQ. It was hard to have a conversation with this guy.
He was no Cary Grant. Let's put it that way.
He was no Cary Grant. But I found that with a lot, like there was like this old guy that I met once on a set, and he was very intelligent guy, or not very intelligent, but he like looked like he had this sort of like what would you call it, like integrity. He looked like a man with integrity. He had that look, you know. But as you talk to him, all he would do was make like messed up sexual jokes. Like the guy was like a total goon. And it was like, and that's what Hollywood is. Hollywood is a bunch of, I'm not talking about necessarily the producers or the directors or the people behind the scenes, but in terms of actors, it's a lot of people who aren't necessarily what you expect them to be based on what you look
artifice.
At. Yeah. It's all artifice because people figure out that they have a certain look and they could go into Hollywood and Hollywood casting directors will bring them in because they look like this thing. And so they'll cast them for that thing. But in reality, they don't necessarily have the character that you would necessarily associate with that thing. But they can pull it off. They can pretend just enough to get to pass as that on camera. So that's a lot of what Hollywood is. And so to me, Hollywood is one of the most. It's just a kind of a detestable place because you're constantly meeting people who are not what they appear to be. G.I. Jose jumps in. G.I. Jose jumps in and he says, in the military, we have a smoke pit where people go smoke. That's where deals and ass kissing is done. I don't smoke and I did not play that game. Oh, that's interesting. That's kind of socially true as well. Like, actually, that's how I met Kurt because Kurt used to go outside to have cigarettes with these girls. That was like a social thing. I used to go talk to the girls.
Don't sugarcoat it. I used to live on the stoop and on many hours of the evening and early morning, we'd be smoking cigarettes and drinking wine and being disgusting young bohemians. And then Chris would come along as a young Republican, almost like the way you would see a solo Mormon or something, and he'd give us a presentation every now and again.
Yes. I would come back after studying. I was studying like graphic design, and just dating different girls in Portland, Oregon. This is Portland, Oregon, weirdly. And I would come by and I would tell them about my adventures
before the
fall.
Day.
Before the fall of Portland. Yeah. I would come tell them my adventures of the day. This is what happened to me while I was studying, or if I, whatever job I happen to have, I'd tell them what I was doing with the job, or, I'd tell them about the girl that day or something, like what happened trying to date this girl or that girl or whatever. And there was always some kind of adventure, some kind of interesting thing. But anyway, what do we think about Hollywood and stealing? Well, you already mentioned it, Jason. Do you want to move on to the next thing?
Well, if Jason doesn't have anything to say about it, then I have something to say about it. But let's go to Jason first, because he looked like
I already
said like he was hating life while he was listening.
No,
you do look like you're hating life.
I'm actually
super angry.
I'm actually tonight. I'm actually listening. I'm listening to Chris talk, and he's saying some good stuff. So I'm enjoying.
It is.
I'm the audience now.
Kurt and I get the impression that you're over it. You're just like slumped down, like this is some bullshit right here.
What the hell are we talking about? Hollywood? Oh yeah, the Hollywood people falling in line behind Joe Biden. Well, of course. I mean, and the movie industry is contracting dramatically. They're not making as many shows. They're not making as many movies. So these people that are multimillionaires and they love attention. They love, making money. They love doing their non-job and being overpaid. So yeah, they're going to show up for something like this. And the Democrat Party has deep pockets. So yeah, they're going to fall in line. They're going to do this kind of stuff because just like the same way they'll do commercials for cars and coffee and everything else. It's just sort of like the mask is off now, where we're in the era of people as products. So they're slapping their brand on the NASCAR right next to the Joe Biden banner, and they're cashing those checks. So, but it's great because we understand this now, and I think that one of the nice things about the conservatives are always cast as being like out of touch and sort of like these old fighting days. They don't know what's cool and what's hip. Well, the leftists don't know what's cool and what's hip. They are always trying to sort of like either derive the culture or just sort of like tap into what's going on with the culture, but they don't know because they're the same old people with money that the Republicans are. They're just amoral. They're just they're just like trying to bleed the young people of their resources and try to influence the culture in a negative way. So it's obvious to the average person, regardless of their age or sort of like the political affiliation, that this is just a desperate attempt to hold on to power.
Well, I actually, let me jump in because I do think that you made a good point about being amoral and not knowing what's cool. Well, I got to disagree with you a little bit because I do think that that being immoral or amoral does free you up a little bit to be able to be a little bit more creative and develop what is cool and to identify what's cool. I do think we're a little bit hamstrung, Christians or anyone with any kind of moral compass or principles, because it is a little bit more difficult for us to explore what's cool because we are limited a little bit by what we think is the right thing or the good thing.
Everyone in the scientific community would agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit true. Like it does reduce progress in a way because we tend to try to be a little bit more careful. Then you got to figure out whether, because the thing is like, okay, let's say you want to make a movie and you can do this scene in 10 different ways. And we're actually going to get to a scene that's extremely immoral here in a minute, but you can do,
stay tuned, folks.
Yeah, you can make it. You can write a scene in 10 different ways. Now, if you're a moral person, you might go, okay, I'm going to take away 7 of these ways because they seem a little bit dirty, and I don't really like it. It's icky. Maybe it's not immoral, but it's like maybe borderline immoral. And you think, I don't want to go there. And you say, so I'll look at these 3, and you pick the best one of those 3. Well, maybe the next guy writes a scene. And he doesn't restrict himself based on what's moral. And he writes the sort of like balls to the wall, craziest scene. And that ends up being what people perceive as cool. And they look at your scene and they think it's a little bit lame because it's too tame, right? I'll give you an example. I did try to do another channel years ago. It's a few years back, which was like a science channel. there was a show called Vsauce, and they used to show what like the new cool science
about
stuff is.
That.
Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah.
And I kind of like I was lamenting the fact that Vsauce was no longer a thing. They didn't really put out new videos, and I liked their format. So I thought I would do something similar. And here's the thing about art. If I, as an artist, create something that's inspired by this other artist, it's almost for sure not going to be the same. It'll be maybe somewhat similar, but it'll be different. And when I ended up making that show, that science show, and I don't really know how this happened because I wasn't even really trying to copy that other show exactly. I was just trying to do something similar. I produced the pilot episode. I produced the first episode, and it was almost identical to the show that I had inspired it. It was so damn close. I had created all my own graphics. I'd picked music that I thought was cool. And when I put the whole thing together, it was so similar to the thing that I was inspired by, that it looked like I had just copied them completely. And I hadn't really, but it was so damn close, and it had taken so much work to produce that I thought, I don't think that I should do this. I don't think that I should do a show that is this similar to the show that inspired it, because it does seem a little bit too much like I'm copying. And I didn't want to be perceived as somebody who was just a hack that was just copying somebody else's stuff. And so I kind of like dismissed that whole project. And I just kind of like tossed it in the bay. It was like months of work, and I just threw it away. And that was just, to me, wanting to have a sense of integrity. Now, if somebody else had done that and they didn't care about having a sense of integrity, they might have made a ton of money producing that show. And I didn't. I decided to scrap it and go. And that's, I'm always trying to do my work with integrity, which I think limits me quite a lot. But
that was good, actually. I thought the product you put out was quite. It
was fantastic. The show was like, I think it was even better than the show that inspired it. But it was just so damn close to the original that I just didn't feel right putting it out. And that's just true of a lot of stuff that I've done in my life. Like, if I feel like the quality isn't there, or if it's not, I have certain standards that I have to live by. And I think that limits you. And that's not necessarily morality, but it's something like morality, right? You want to be a principled person, and principles can limit you, but that's the trade-off that we make in life as Christians, as conservatives. So sure. I think that amoral leftists do tend to be cooler than Christian conservatives. Although right now we're the rebels, so we are the cool ones for a very short time.
Yeah.
I'm done.
well, you interrupted me, so if I had another point, it's been long since forgotten. So
sorry, man. I apologize.
That's all
right. Next story.
Right.
So, axis of authoritarian states. UK PM Sunak warns of most dangerous times since Cold War. The United Kingdom's Prime Minister has outright accused China and a group of other axis of authoritarian states, including Russia, of undermining Western security and values.
Sorry, let me just throw this out real quick. I don't have a ton to say on this. I just think that it's annoying that this is precisely what Trump was saying when he was running for president in 2016. It's now something that's universally observed and respected. And this guy, who, by the way, he's a conservative. He's the head of the Conservative Party in the UK, which is about as conservative as Hillary Clinton. They've come out. He's coming out now and saying, "Oh, maybe China is trying to hack us, and they may not be the most honorable country in the world." It's hello. And also, honestly, this should have just been accepted when Trump got elected, because it was exposed at that point. It was universally accepted by everybody here at that point. And leftists did push back a little bit. They were like, "Oh, China's not so bad." You remember Joe Biden was like, these are good people, man. They're not trying to eat our lunch. You remember all that crap? So it did take a while for everybody to get on board. But yeah, I think everybody's on board at this point. So they're way behind on this, one. And two, they actually have much bigger things to worry about in the UK right now. I think their immigration problem is so out of control, and their whole social mindset is so out of control. They are willing to essentially obliterate their own culture, the UK. So to me, they got bigger fish to fry.
So hold on, let me just
The
jump in here.
administration.
There's something deeper
Leadership is
in this, Chris.
Yeah,
you bring a good point, but there's something deeper. Like if you go and read what he says, so he says an axis of authoritarian states, Iran, Russia, North Korea, China, acting in an assertive way that is threatening our values and threatening
that's
our
that's why I was making the point about the immigration
and interests abroad and at home in a more interconnected world. So China, what are China and Russia and all these countries doing? They're focusing on their nationalism. They're focusing on their countries. They're against, like you said, the immigration. You know, they're getting back to their religious values. China not so much, but Russia is like getting back to like the Orthodox Church and building all these cathedrals and stuff. So these people are looking at that and they see that, yes, it's threatening their world view right now. Like,
well, no, what the left calls xenophobia, right? Which is essentially just patriotism, nationalism, a respect for your own culture. The cultures who embrace or respect their own cultures, the cultures who love their own cultures, who love their own religion, who love their own people, their own nation, they're the ones that are going to win. Like everyone in the West who goes, oh, we're going to sacrifice our culture on the you know, on the altar of woke. We're going to die. We're going to kill off our own culture. Now, I do think there are enough conservatives still that we could preserve it in America, but I think the UK is lost actually already. But you make a great point, Jason.
Yeah,
like
that's
like these
totally
other cultures, they care about their own cultures.
Yeah, Russia and China are a threat to what they want to achieve, which is, you know, like global governments, you know, like open borders. And right now, Russia and China and North Korea and the other Iran, they said they're like the complete opposite of that, especially Russia. I think their target is more Russia because Russia is like completely booming in that right now. Like they're so focused on
what
nationalism.
the UK needs a Trump. The UK needs a Trump.
Well, Boris Johnson was supposed to be.
I was going to say,
turned out to be.
I know.
Yeah.
That was terrible. That was a terrible.
He turned out to be a Johnson.
Yeah,
he's probably compromised. That would be my guess. I don't always jump to that conclusion. I know a lot of people always do, but I mean that was weird because
marketed in that way. I think maybe he was.
No, I think that he really was a sort of like reform type guy, and then because he had some skeletons, they dug him up, or they had some stuff on him, and the people that controlled him went like, "You got to step in line," and he went, "Okay, you know, just don't send me to prison for the rest of my life." That's the thing. Imagine being that rich and powerful and having those kind of connections and going to all the best parties and flying on private jets all over the world and basically living the best quality of life that is possible to live in the world today, and having that Damocles sword hanging over your head every single day of you could literally go to prison for the rest of your life and have the worst quality of life that is possible to have outside of maybe homelessness on the streets of Los Angeles, but living in prison for the rest of your life, having that dishonor or
the magnitude
shame
of the fall from grace is all the way to the top, all the way to the bottom.
Yeah. These people are so easily controlled because they're so delicately perched. You know, I mean, the only person that I can think of, the only two people I can think of who don't seem to care are Trump and Elon Musk, and that's why we love them so much.
And that's why the left hates them so much, because they can't be controlled.
Yeah, exactly.
They're toxically masculine, you might say. They got nothing but their balls and their brains, and they take on the whole world. They don't give a f. Yeah. Which is great. These are the kind of people that we should be holding up as role models and as inspirations for men, not Timothy Chalamet wearing a dress on the red carpet.
You keep calling him Charlemagne, but that's not his name.
I think it is.
It's like no, it isn't.
Well, I didn't say it is. I said I think it is.
Yeah, but it's not.
Chris, I live my own reality. All right.
Okay. Fair enough. What are you thinking about this, Jay? What else are you thinking about this, Jason? I interrupted you.
No, that's pretty much my thought that I had.
Right.
It's more about that. It's more about because come on, like you said, Trump was saying that when he was president, even before he was president, and all of a sudden now they're on board with that. Come on, no, it's they see that threat. They see the populism starting to be take control of certain countries, you know, and you're getting people like Putin, like that. People are actually leaning more towards like, is there something like maybe this guy has something, maybe he's not wrong, you know? So it's a threat to their world order. And
populism is a dirty word now. It's basically like, oh, like the riffraff. Don't let the unwashed masses control the government. Like that's what the government is for, to represent the people. And it's interesting. We're talking a lot about like China and things. So Japan, this wasn't in the list, but it made me think of it. Japan is beefing up its military because they're worried about North Korea and more specifically China. I think they're really worried about China. They're like, okay, we're not going to be dependent on the United States anymore. We are going to have a larger standing military because of what's going on in the world now, and we want to be able to contribute to our own defense. It's sort of like the idea of Japan is in a sticky sort of place now, where it's sort of like, okay, you guys can't have guns for home defense. Call the cops and hope they show up in time. And Japan's saying like, no. Japan is basically being like embracing the American idea of like, no, we're going to defend ourselves, and if you guys are on our side, that's great, but we're not going to rely on you. And I think that's really telling. That's really telling, because they're saying like, okay, we know what's going on in the world. This globalism thing was a nice little pipe dream, a nice way to sort of like expand the worldwide bureaucracy. And then we saw like Brexit, we saw that happen, and everybody was shocked. You know, the powers that be are always shocked when the people say, we don't want BS. And it's like, oh, we thought they were buying the BS. They don't want it. You know, so that happened with Brexit. And now we're seeing sort of like the long-term effects of that, where these cultures, these civilizations, these countries are saying like, hey, we want to live a certain way, and you guys are telling us we shouldn't want that. And we're rejecting
I just wish there were more people in Britain who were on that side, because they voted for Brexit, but they don't seem to be willing to go full. Like, I think most of the population of Britain doesn't seem to be willing to go full on into this idea of like, let us start mass deportations, because that's really at the point that they're at, where they need, because
they've been manipulated. They're already
exactly.
They may very well be at that point.
You know, the other thing, if Kurt will allow me to talk.
I guess
the other thing is they're ramping up everything to get into a world war, I think, too, because I don't think things are working quite as well as they thought it would. So I think they're just ramping up the rhetoric, like the Axis, you know, China, this, and Russia, and you know, I know I think I heard that they're ramping up their militaries in Europe and Poland.
I would have to be convinced of a motivation for a world war. I don't see a good motivation.
China is facing a huge economic collapse right now, and has been for months.
Yeah, that's true. I know, but I think Jason's talking about the West.
Yes,
is ramping up for this.
Yeah,
just for the distraction, just to prevent an election.
I mean,
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so it's just a observation I made. But the main point that I think it's just they see what's happening in those countries, and it's totally against what they're trying to fulfill in the West.
Jason and I had a huge debate over the weekend about motivations and intentions, and now we hate each other. No. You know, it's
That's
great.
why I'm so quiet tonight.
It's great. Conservatives can have these sort of like aggressive debates, and we don't go home saying we're not going to be friends anymore. You know what I mean? But you get in a fight with a leftist, and man, good luck. The way you pronounce Timothy's last name is Chalamet, which sounds like Charlemagne, so I can understand why you think that.
How did you initially pronounce it?
I think I said Shamalot.
Yeah, so I was way closer.
Yeah, but I didn't. I said or whatever. I didn't know how to pronounce his name. You were convinced.
Yeah, I was close enough.
Chalamet. All right, but anyway, I was right about you being wrong, and that's all I care about. All right, let's move on to the next Let's
I
move on
will
to the next thing.
chastise myself appropriately after we're off
Yes.
So
the
we're
floggings.
we're one of those
the
hair.
next one is
coats for the
Netflix
next week.
under fire over fully private part seen in a man in full series.
Just read the
Put up the
damn thing.
article.
Don't try to
Put up
censor
the article.
yourself. It's too. Don't try to censor yourself. It's too confusing. Just say it.
Put it up. I'm not gonna say it.
Chris, if we
All
get
right, so
demonetized, we're going to lose like $5-7.
You heard what I just said? Put it up. I'm not gonna say it.
Netflix under fire for fully erect
pun
penis
intended.
scene in a Man in Full series. In a Man in Full must be the name of the series. Well, first of all, this guy is not handsome, so I think that's their biggest problem. But if you're gonna see a naked guy on screen, at least have him be like a good-looking dude. This guy just looks like a weak, pathetic loser lefty type. Nobody wants to see that. What's interesting is that I think Kurt or Jason or somebody said, okay, we got to get this off the screen because this is just nasty. Said something about how movies and TV shows have essentially become pornography. I actually think it's the opposite. I think ever since pornography has become ubiquitous on the internet, we've actually seen fewer sex scenes. It's actually quite funny. Like, because I do this show, Make Movies Great Again, which you can watch on Rumble, excellent show, every week. Every once in a while, I'll be watching a movie from the 80s, and there will be this like gratuitous sex scene. It'll be like pretty hardcore, sex scene. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on? Like, I'm not.
That's
like,
that's when movies used to be good.
Yeah, but I think the gratuitous sex scenes used to exist because there is a certain percentage of the population that just would refuse to buy pornography. Like, they wouldn't buy porno tapes. They wouldn't buy like Playboy magazine. I remember when I was a kid, like, even if you were like going through like the newspaper or something and you saw an advertisement for women in bras, like an advertisement for bras, you'd be like, oh, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Like when you're like 10 years old and you got an ad for bras, it was like super exciting. This was like back in the 80s. But because things were so tame back then, if you had a gratuitous sex scene, it was like quite a big deal in a movie. But nowadays, you can get that online. It's so easy to get pornography.
They're getting more vulgar with their sex scenes in Hollywood. Like, there's actual
no. Hold on. Let me finish what I'm saying. Let me finish what I'm saying, Jason. So I think that for the most part, in most movies, they actually tamp down on that aspect because people don't really need the movies for that anymore. They can go elsewhere for that, and it's so common now that Hollywood, I don't think they need to put that in. That's not an attractive part of a film anymore to put that in. The only reason you would do it is if it is so over the edge, so pushing the envelope that it actually becomes newsworthy, right? So if you want to have a sex scene in a film, it would have to be so provocative it would make news. And so you're going to end up with stuff like this from time to time. But I think for the most part, it's actually better. I prefer to see a movie without gratuitous sex scenes. I would prefer it to be a little bit more sort of like implied stuff. And so I'm glad that it's gone that way, actually. That's one good direction that Hollywood's gone. But yeah, it does create this situation in which if they do want to be provocative, they got to go real crazy. I don't really care about this. I'm not going to watch this stupid show. I don't know what this is. I never even heard of this, so I'm not even really that bothered.
Pope Francis,
Jason.
World nearing breaking point.
Hold on, Jason.
I thought you had a point to make about this. That's why.
We all thought you had it. What are you doing? Nobody said let's move on.
It was awkward silence, so I was like, move on.
No, we're waiting for you to. I interrupted you. Well, you interrupted me, and then I stopped you from interrupting me. But feel free to throw in your 2 cents.
No, Kurt, go for it.
Jesus. Okay, well, I kicked the leg of the shelf on my desk. So the whole reason they moved away from part of the reason they moved away from that was PG-13. So since that time in the 80s, you got all these movies that would have been more for an adult audience. Like back in the day, everything was G-rated. They didn't even have a rating system. And then they were like, okay, R rating, whatever. And now Fast and the Furious movies, all this stuff is all PG-13, Transformers, because they want the broadest audience possible. They want everybody to go watch this because they have the more potential to make money. But then it really comes down to just Hollywood being full of hacks, but nobody has any sort of like inspiration, any creativity, any foresight. So you have something like Deadpool comes out, and Deadpool is R-rated. That does good. So it's like, oh, let's make Logan. Like that movie made money because it's R-rated. No, that movie made money because it wasn't crap. You guys put out a bunch of crap, and then people go see this Ryan Reynolds Deadpool movie, and it's like it happens to be R-rated, and it's like great. It fit well for what they were doing. Some movies makes more sense for them to be R-rated. Some movies makes more sense to be PG or whatever, and then everybody considers NC-17 or whatever they call it now to be the kiss of death. They haven't made one of those in years. But yeah, in a way, there is so much stuff like with the internet and everything. There's so much vulgarity, so much blatant pornography, just like at your fingertips, that is not a thing anymore. Like exploitation cinema, like trashy movies are 20 years in the grave, 30 years in the grave at this point. They've gone the way of the dodo, so they're not really doing that. But yeah, this exists. This thing with Jeff Daniels, poor Jeff Daniels, Dong and Donger, I guess is what they should call this. But he's in this movie. Or
I've never really been a big fan of Jeff Daniels.
I like Jeff Daniels. He's got a sense of humor. I like him.
I would throw a spider on him if I met him. It's an arachnophobia reference.
Arachnophobia? I've never seen that. I've never seen that movie. Maybe I should. But yeah, so this is a thing. They did this because they're pushing this because this is male nudity. This is only motivated by, oh, we're doing something to like be exploitative, to be sort of like provocative. But the reason why they're doing it is because it's a guy. It's like, let's show this guy's dong, and this is going to get this show publicity. And then we're also going to, and then if anybody rails against it, everybody says like, hey, why are you showing that? They'd be like, oh, you're a bigot. So it's just dangling a carrot in front of the audience, or
can
dangling,
we just
dangling something else that looks like
exactly
in this case.
Can we just all sit and appreciate a moment that Kurt totally unintentionally used the term dangling a carrot in front of the audience in reference to a naked man on screen, and he also used the word dong, which I think is a too underappreciated word that is meant to
welcome back to the Dangling Dong podcast, everybody.
The Dangling Dong podcast. Absolutely love it. Jason, you got any thoughts on this?
Nope. I think you guys summed it up pretty good.
Yeah. It actually sounds
you know
like
what?
Be very appealing in China because it almost sounds vaguely Chinese, even though it's not.
Dangling Dong?
Yeah. That's the next leader of China.
Meet our new important leader, Dangling Dong. It would be 3 words, right? Dangling Dong.
I was hoping you would do that, and I wasn't disappointed. Thank you very much for indulging me.
No problem. Dangling Dong would be 3 names, right? Dang dash ling dong. I almost made Kurt spill out his whatever alcohol was in that mug. So I'm quite happy about that. Look, everybody, welcome to the Dangling Dong podcast. All right, so every Monday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. All right, Jace, let's move on to the next story. I'm glad we got some good jokes in today. I've been complaining. So Kurt, this is how I described it to a buddy of mine the other day.
Yeah. Chris is like, I don't not pay you for nothing.
Exactly. Kurt, well, here's the funny thing. Like, Kurt's not bad on the podcast. Like, he's pretty fun. Nobody would think that Kurt has a fear of the camera. But the difference between how Kurt is on the phone, like as soon as we go off the air and it's me and Jason and Kurt knows that people aren't watching, he's hilarious. Like, you would not believe how fun. Something about the camera being on and him knowing that other people are watching it it changes his way of speaking, and he becomes a little too self-conscious. So we're working on pushing him out of that, but it's taken a while. It's taken longer than I thought it was going to. All right, Jason, next. I don't know why we shared that with the audience, but it's true.
Yeah, I don't understand that either. A little peek behind the camera.
At this point. A little peek behind the camera.
At this point and for your entire life. Anyway, Jason.
Pope Francis, world nearing breaking point from climate change.
Okay, I'm just going to tell you quick. I don't have a lot to say about this, but I'm going to tell you quickly why this pisses me off, because climate change is a religion. And it's a religion that is, I think, what's the word? Competing with Christianity now for the attention of the public.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do we care about in this world? Do we care about being good people? Do we care about traditional values? Do we care about family? Do we care about God and country and, all the things that we, have worked to create Western civilization and to keep people happy and healthy and develop a good, high quality of life? Or do we care about this climate change cultism? And we now have the head of the Catholic Church, which I'm not Catholic, but I do respect Catholicism. My family was Catholic for many generations in Germany before my father's side of the family, before I was born. When I was born, about the time I was born, we switched to Protestantism. So we sort of we sort of stepped away from the whole Pope worship stuff. I don't know how Catholics reconcile this at this time, because I do appreciate the reverence that Catholics have for God and for the traditions of the Catholic Church. But there's some things, obviously, Protestants do not agree with the Catholics. And one of the things that's always bothered Protestants about Catholicism is their reverence for the Pope, who is not a perfect person. The Catholics tend to believe that the Pope
It's almost like idolatry, right?
Yeah, that's how a lot of Protestants perceive it. But I do appreciate a reverence for the head of the church. I do appreciate that. But this guy, I can't respect this guy. This guy is such a lefty cultist. Like he's injecting climate change religion into what Catholics accept as the true religion of the world, the true faith, the true story of the universe. And they're injecting this climate change nonsense, which is a competing, I would say, a competing religion, which is a false religion, right? They're worshiping this false god of wokeness. And the Pope is going along with it. Like, what kind of a Pope allows his religion to be usurped by a cult? Another religion. This guy's terrible. This guy's the worst thing ever. And I feel like the last Pope was kicked out so that this guy could be brought in. And I don't know what sinister forces were behind that.
Yeah,
I believe he was installed. And I believe the last guy was kicked out because the last guy wasn't like a conservative, decent Catholic. I think he was like in the Nazi youth or something. And so, and he was also rocked, of course, by the molestation scandal in the church that was kind of covered up a little bit and everything.
Yeah, because that started with him, right? That was only going on during his administration,
right? But he got basically blamed for it, and then he was convinced to step down. I wish he wouldn't have. I wish he was still. I think he died. Didn't he die? The last the Pope between. Anyway, but this guy's a disaster. This guy's a total, absolute disaster. He's the worst possible Pope. I can't stand him. Anyway, Jason, what do you got to say about this?
What pisses me off is that he's blaming the United States for most of the climate.
Well, of course, everybody does. Yeah.
And that's what pisses me off, because he says if we consider that emissions per individual in the United States are about 2 times greater than those of individuals living in China, and which China is one of the most places that pollute the most, that's what pisses me off. And the second thing is, if you're a Christian, like he's supposed to be our Catholic and he believes in God and all that, it's really hard to kind of like believe in climate change, because isn't God in control of everything? Like, isn't he in control of the climate? Isn't he, like, man does not have the power to
exactly. If climate change is going to bring about the rapture, then it is preordained. It's supposed to happen.
Yep.
Right?
Well, I'm not so sure I'm on the same page there, but we obviously have a.
Well, it's 2-1, Chris. Doesn't matter what you think.
Yeah, we are stewards of the planet. I do think we have a responsibility to take care of the planet. Look, if you grew up in Oregon, where I'm from, this is really interesting. Have you guys seen the show Clarkson Farm?
You made that up.
It's only the most popular show on Amazon. This is literally like
Clark
one of the biggest shows in the world.
Ampersand Farm? Clarkson?
No, Clarkson, like Jeremy Clarkson. Anyway, this is one of the best shows. I highly recommend you guys both watch this show. I watched the entire series yesterday. It's very quick. You can watch it really quickly. When I say series,
Chris is hard at work making new videos for you guys.
I'm deathly ill, Kurt. Give me an effing break. For crying out loud. I can barely move.
That's not my job.
I'm doing okay today. So today's like the first day I feel like, okay, I'm going to actually like do some work. But Clarkson Farm is literally like the best show on TV. I mean, it's on Amazon, but you guys get it. The best show on streaming. Fantastic. Everybody should watch it. Highly recommend. This guy who was doing Top Gear, who had this great car show, he decided to move out on a farm and try farming. He doesn't know what he's doing. A lot of this stuff is kind of manufactured. Oh, I effed up this. I effed up that. And it's obviously BS for the cameras, but it's still a bit of fun, you know. And he is an idiot, you know. I mean, like in terms of like his ability to farm, he's completely inept. Although he's better in season 3. So I watched the whole season 3 the other day. Absolutely fantastic show. But one thing that he said that really struck me on that show, which is something that we used to talk about loggers this way, people who would do logging in Oregon. Environmentalists would always talk about the loggers as like they were the bad guys. But anybody who wants to go out in the woods every day as their job and cut down trees, these people love the forest. They literally work and live in the forest. These are the forest people. Okay, your ecologist guy who goes out and catches a salamander and takes a blood sample and all that. These are city dwelling, effing, these are city guys who want to pretend to be country guys for a little bit. They care about the environment. Yeah, they're posers. I had a teacher like this.
You could even say like the loggers have a lot more in common with the Native Americans than the scientists
100%.
do, because the Native Americans were stewards of the land, and they would actually like clear brush, burn things so that you wouldn't wind up burning the whole damn forest down when a lightning.
But I would say that the loggers are even more so close to the land than even the Native Americans, because the Native Americans were only that way because of their primitive level of technology. The loggers actually have the technology where they don't actually have to live in the forest. They choose to do that as their career, and they're drawn to it for a reason. And what Jeremy Clarkson said on the show was very telling. Because he had all these pigs that were dying. He had these pigs that were supposed to breed little baby piglets. And what would happen was I didn't know this until I watched the show, but like mother pigs are like the worst mothers in the animal kingdom. They'll literally just like roll over their own piglets and kill them and like smother them to death. Yeah, it's crazy. And this is like very common. And like one of the mothers actually presumably rolled over on her kid and killed it, the piglet, and then ate her own piglet. Like this is like, pigs are kind of crazy. Like pigs are these like really dumb, like everyone, pigs are so smart. No, they're dumb animals. Okay. So anyway, as these pigs are dying, you see Jeremy and his girlfriend, whatever quasi-wife, girlfriend thing, crying over these baby pigs. And they really care about their animals. They care about the goats. They care about the cows. They like fall in love with these animals, and then they got to go slaughter them. And he makes this point where he's like, farmers he goes, I call it farmer logic. He's like, I obviously I've met a lot of farmers since I started doing this. And farmers absolutely love animals. They love animals. Every single animal on your farm, you care about them. You want them to be healthy. You love their animals more than any other person in the world. You get these environmentalists that are always talking about how much, these PETA people. Farmers, the ones that actually work with the animals every day, they actually love and care about these animals. And he goes, but then you got to slaughter them. And this one chick that he was with is like, oh, yeah, but that's how you keep animals going. Like the cows, like there's more cows than like any other animal on the planet because we love eating cows and chickens and pigs. These are like the most plentiful animals on the planet. If you want to preserve, and he made this point, he goes, if you want to preserve the great panda, start eating them, because then people start farming the great panda. this is something I used to like Stossel used to talk about a lot. It's actually a really brilliant solution to environmental issues with endangered animals. If they taste good, start farming.
Ecology as supply and demand. I never thought about that.
Exactly. I mean, it's so true. It's so true. So he makes a really good point. But I guess the major point I'm trying to make is, the people that care about this stuff are the people who work in that industry. And then you get these these people living in their ivory towers thinking that they know what's best. And the truth is, a lot of times they have an incentive that has nothing to do with protecting animals. They have an incentive that has nothing to do with protecting the trees or the forest or anything like that. I'm from Oregon. I grew up in the forest. Okay, I love this planet. I love nature. I want to preserve it as much as anybody. But you've got to take a rational approach to things, and you've got to try to figure out how are they trying to trick you. And because they're not everybody who pretends to like the environment is a good person. And I would say that like Al Gore, AOC, all these people that pretend to love the environment, but they live in the big city and they fly private jets everywhere, they don't really care about any of this stuff. They are conning you. And you got to be very careful about that. This pontiff, he does not live in the forest. He lives in a major metropolitan area. He lives in the Vatican. He's surrounded by luxury. He's surrounded by wealth. He doesn't know anything about the climate. He doesn't know anything about this stuff. He's told this or that. Either he's an idiot or he's a con man, one of the two. That's what I have to say about that.
Yeah.
Stop sitting back, Jason. It looks like you don't like us and you don't care.
Kurt.
Didn't have much to say about that, did you, Chris?
Sorry.
Yeah.
I had a spark of inspiration.
Yeah, he's.
It's the same thing with hunters. Hunters are the most.
Going the opposite direction, where he was like, full face and frame, and then he's just like he's either all the way in or all the way out. Just like the stars of that Netflix show with what's his face. Anyway, sorry, Jason, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No. I was just
hunters, Jason. Hunters.
I was interrupting.
No, I was just gonna say that hunters are the same way. Like people always criticize hunters and stuff like that, but
yeah,
they're actually massive conservationists with like wildlife and all that.
Exactly.
Why would you want all these animals to be extinct or killed off or and actually they do a service too. They protect other species, so yeah, Chris, I agree with
that's one episode of the show of Clarkson Farm. They talk about hunters and how necessary they are to keep the population of deer down so that they don't destroy the environment.
Yeah, there's these videos on YouTube with like that I watch all the time. It's like they go hog hunting. And they even use like automatic weapons on these hogs and stuff. But you'll always see
that's popular. Actually, that's a big thing in Hawaii. I've always wanted to go hunting wild pigs in Hawaii, but Kurt isn't up for it, so we've never done it. But I would love to do that, man.
So yeah, so I'm watching these videos on YouTube, but you always go and you listen to the comments, read the comments. And there's always that one person like, oh, how can you do this? This is horrible. Like, you're killing all these. You're even killing little baby hogs and stuff. And if they would just understand that these hogs, first of all, they're not native to most parts here in the United States. Here in Florida, where I live, they're an invasive species. Yeah. So you're free to hunt them whenever you want. And it's doing a service to the state because they kill.
Should I do a show? Should I pitch a show to like Newsmax or Blaze or something where... Because I didn't really grow up hunting. There's a lot of things I didn't grow up doing that I would consider masculine stuff, where I just go try to do these like crazy masculine things. Like I try to go hunt pigs or something.
Like Wanda Sykes.
Does she do a show like that?
Reagan does it.
Huh? Nobody understands.
Yeah, for a little while they had like this show, Wanda Does It, where she would just like be a bus driver. But you could sort of do the manly version where like for the day you're like an NFL linebacker or something. I'd watch that.
Oh, that would be awesome. Oh, I love that so much. I would get killed being a linebacker. I'm not that big. I'm about 5'10".
One episode only of the show exists. That's why I was going to watch, because you die.
Right. Dang, man. Like, yeah, I would have to do some things I really don't want to do.
But no, I'd be
like, I have no interest in. I have no interest in
like
bungee
bow
jumping.
hunting or something. I'd do that. Yeah,
bow hunting I would do. I would dress up in like a suit of armor. Like they have these tournaments where people. This is like a sport now where people dress up in like suits of armor and go fight each other. It's crazy.
Yeah, armored combat or whatever it's called. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Jason, I think you've inspired a show for me.
Perfect.
With your pig hunting diatribe. All right, shall we move on to the next one?
Do it. I'll film it.
Love it.
Nolte, the writer for Breitbart. Democrat-run California about to get hit with 50-cent per gallon gas tax.
Okay, I genuinely don't have anything to say about this. Although the other day, somebody asked him, a reporter asked him, we used to have a surplus of like $5 billion. Now we have nothing. What the hell happened? And I think he said, I think his response was like, oh, it's all about climate change. It's all about climate change. Like that was his immediate response or something like that.
I'm reading the article and they bring up a good point, which I agree with. And I was like, yes, that's it. It's all about driving the middle class out of California. That way there's only rich elite liberals and the very poor.
Right.
So they keep raising the taxes and all that stuff and doing everything just to drive the middle class out. Because the middle class, I think, is pretty much conservative.
Right.
Yes.
So I think all these things that they do is just to drive them out and keep which at the end of the day, in the long run, it's going to be horrible for them, which you already see the effects of it. But I think, that's it. Bring in the illegals, keep the poor and the rich, liberal, lefty elitists. And that's why I wanted to do this article, because I think that's a good point.
It's an excellent point.
It's an interesting dynamic, because right now I'm staying at a place. This is Bali, Indonesia. It's a really unusual place. It's one of the few places in the world, and I highly recommend people come visit here if they're willing to have a little bit of adventure, because there's no safety regulations, right? Like you basically, like if you die, you die. That's part of like life in a third world country. But it's not a third world country in the sense that like there's just dire poverty everywhere. I've never seen a homeless person here. But what you do have is you have people who are really quite poor that live, below the poverty line, I would say, a lot of people here. And then you have people who are relatively middle class. You have some very, very rich people here. But a lot of people are sort of like middle class, regular, middle class, I would say, American level. And even not, I would say, like lower middle class, like people that come from Eastern Europe and stuff like that. But if you come from Eastern Europe, or you come from Europe, or you come, like a lot of people from the Netherlands, a lot of people from Germany, a lot of people from Sweden, places like that. Very few Americans here. But what you get is this sort of dual class here in Bali, where you get the Europeans doing all the European stuff, and then you get the locals who essentially work in the service industry servicing the Europeans. And it really is like the antebellum South. It really is like colonial Africa. And let me tell you guys, it's amazing. Like, it's so good. It's so good. Like, living here is honestly, like, I don't want to say I'm living here, but I've been here for a while now. I've been here for about 4 months, I would say. And it is an experience. I can't even explain to you the experience, because you show people respect, but you really are in a dual class system. It's completely two classes. It's the Indonesian locals and it's the Europeans. And we just enjoy this amazing, it's almost like we live like kings from 100 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, we're working for the East India Company, and we got, we've decided to go hunt some rhinoceros, and we've got like 100 native Africans carrying our bags on their backs as we march into the jungle. You know what I mean? That's kind of what life is like here. And here's the thing. In America, we don't like this kind of lifestyle, because we look at it as inhumane to the people who are serving us. Typically, we don't really like to see a huge disparity in class. But I think that the left actually strives for it. I think the left wants to turn leftist regions. This is why they bring in so many illegal immigrants, because they want to be the kings that have the great, the great masses of servants.
That's her. She's reclaiming her previous lifestyle.
Right. I mentioned that in a previous episode of the show, is that she comes from this kind of world, and she's openly admitted that she misses that lifestyle. And it's like, and it is a great lifestyle. I mean, if you're here in Bali, you know that there's no sort of moral ambiguity to it, because you are helping them to raise this region out of the poverty that they would be in otherwise. Like if there was no tourism here, they would be even in a much worse circumstance here in Bali.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that this industry exists, or that there are so many Europeans here, has elevated their economy massively, and it sort of revolutionized their economy, and they're sort of growing out of what they used to be, which eventually they'll become probably jerks like everybody in Hawaii is. But at the moment, it's a really, really nice, interesting place. But you wouldn't want to take a place that had already grown out of that and revert back to it. That's not progress. That's devolution. That's kind of like ruining. That's devolving. That's taking a place that has progressed and you're reverting back to a more primitive state. But Democrats, they want to live like that. They want their servants. They want to feel like they're more important than other people.
That's exactly what this article is about. You're right.
Yeah.
It's 100%.
And we used to have society where we had like citizen soldiers, where you would be someone that you own land and you had a stake in the country, and you would sort of like, hang up your work clothes and grab your gun and then march off to defend it and that sort of thing. And now everything's compartmentalized, where the goal of eliminating
I got to run downstairs real quick. You guys do the next story and keep talking. And Jason, you're in charge. I'll be right back.
All right, Jason. Am I allowed to continue with my diatribe?
Yes.
Or okay, thank you. You're a wise and generous, omnipotent leader.
I won't cut you off.
Okay. Well, the idea used to be like in America, it's just like, okay, everyone is sort of has a responsibility to the country. It's like, and I think they're trying to move away from that, and this grievance culture is sort of like turn everybody against each other, have a welfare state for some people, have like an underclass, and then the middle class are the ones that are dangerous to the ruling class because they have enough education, they have enough investment and enough agency to challenge them. So therefore, you need to tax them and eliminate their businesses. Like what happened with COVID, it was all about eliminating private business, small business. Small business should be the foundation of this country, where you have the guy running the general store or whatever, or doing whatever he does, the mechanics, these kind of guys. And it happened to my uncle. They were like, okay, we got COVID now, you're out of business. Why is he out of business? Because he's not investing in the bureaucracy. He's not the guy that's sort of like big enough and plugged in enough and has enough connections where he can kick back something to the guys in charge. He's just servicing his clientele. His clientele were beautiful people. They were loyal. They're appreciative of his services. And the government steps in and says, we don't like you. We don't like you because what are you doing? You're servicing the community. You're not an agent of the bureaucracy, and therefore you must be eliminated. And that's what they're trying to do nationwide.
I ordered some coffee. I expected it to get here after the show was over, but it got here a couple of minutes early.
This is illustrative of our point, because here Jason and I, we're like good, hardworking, middle-class people, and the affluent Chris Coles has his fancy stuff delivered. He's just like, you peons, you carry the grain from the fields off to be milled, and I will go and I will get my fancy coffee that's been delivered to my doorstep, and I will return when it suits me. Anyway,
I highly recommend, if you're in Bali, go to Nourish. It's the best restaurant out here. It's fantastic. Just amazing. Just amazing. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This place is the best.
Yeah. You came back at a great time. I was finished my point. Anyway, sorry.
Back to that point, like, yeah, the Democrats totally just want to be in control of like serfs. Yeah, they want to control, and that's why it's even when it comes down to race, like lower expectations. What's the saying that they
look? The truth, the soft racism with low expectations. Look, the truth is that everyone wants to be treated like a king. Of course, everybody wants that privilege, but there's a difference between wanting to be treated like a king and wanting to treat other people like peasants. Right. And I think that's the difference. A conservative, they want to be the king of their castle. They want to have land. They want to be able to have the freedom to do whatever they want with that land, buy a digger farm the land, do whatever they want, be independent, rule
Be left
their domain,
alone.
but be left alone. But they don't necessarily want to have dominion over other people's lives. The Democrats, this is probably actually just an epiphany. I think this is why they say that pro-life people want to control women's bodies, because they're all about that. They're all about controlling other people and having dominance over other people. So that's they're projecting, psychologically projecting their own impulses on other people. And so they're saying, oh, conservatives, they want to control us. They want to control us. No, we effing don't. We just want to be left alone. Go F yourself. We don't give a shit about your body. We just want to protect little babies from getting killed, you dickheads. So this is what this is how conservatives think versus how leftists think. You always know what leftists are doing by what they're accusing us of. They want to dominate other people. They want peasants. They are sick, sad twats.
And Jason brought up a great point about like serfdom and that sort of thing, where we go back to like the 50s. What is the American dream? You'll own your own home. You have a car. You'll have like
white
all
picket fence.
Yeah, that sort of thing. And that is disappearing now because home ownership is becoming more and more out of reach. And it's sort of like, it's sort of like taking everything away from people, taking away their ability to be autonomous and to have sort of a foundation.
That looks
and
good.
To just sort of like keep them working, keep them always like pushing and like feeding into the economy, and not owning anything. Like they have this whole thing, like you'll own nothing and you'll love it. We see that across all of industry. We see that in like home ownership. Even you can't even own a freaking DVD or a video game anymore. It's all becoming digital, where like, you'll pay a monthly subscription, and the second we decide it, we'll raise it up or rip it away from you. It's like they don't want people to have anything.
Well, I think that's more of just that's just a more of an intelligent capitalistic model. I'm not that worried about that in terms of like a sinister thing, but I do agree with what you're saying. I think that it's about power and control. I think the reason that people are drawn to being a Democrat, if they have power, if they have money, it's because they want power. It doesn't have anything to do with improving the world or abortion rights or all the stuff that they pretend they care about, LGBTQ rights, all that kind of stuff. These are all just ways of them accumulating power. If you're rich, if you're powerful, and you're a leftist, you are a power-hungry con artist that wants to rule the world.
They're con artists, and they're dangling the carrot in front of the younger generations, because the younger generations haven't achieved anything yet. So
okay,
they're always...
Kurt, enough of this carrot dangling.
Chris,
there's something wrong here.
Just because your perverted mind can't see my euphemism for what it is doesn't mean that the rest of the audience has to suffer, and you have to.
And mine just happens to be shaped like a carrot, which is weird but true.
Yeah,
and it's orange.
The people of
it's
California,
very orange. I don't know. It's weird.
The people of California, people of New York, the people that actually vote for Democrats, which I don't think there's a lot. I just think it's rigged, like I say. But the people that actually do, I think they're suffering from Stockholm syndrome. Really.
Yeah, well, definitely black people. You're talking about black people. I think black people, there's a certain thing about, like, I think it's really smart of Democrats to keep black people uneducated.
Of course.
Because the more uneducated they can...
No men in their lives.
Think about all the conservative black people that you know about, right? Even if you don't like some of them. I know there's a problem with what's her name right now and everything. But, like, these people tend to be highly educated and intelligent. Whether you agree with their politics exactly or not, conservative, like Thomas Sowell is a perfect example. This guy is like a flippin' genius. One of the best educated people. You'll read about his stuff. He's like a genius. The best educated black people are conservatives. And they figure out what the Democrat plantation is. They figure all that stuff out. So, you guys, we have the most viewers I think we've ever had simultaneously watching the show.
And they've managed to turn the descendants, the children of the middle class and upper middle class, who is going to the universities. It's the descendants of the middle class and upper middle class, and they are miseducating them. They're getting them to put themselves in debt or to spend the hard-earned money of their middle class or middle class parents in order to turn them into socialist activists.
Yeah. Sad.
It's really a brilliant system. I mean, I got to hand it to them. They're
effective. Democrats definitely know what they're doing. Yeah, they're intelligent. They're super villains. All right, listen. If you guys want to be part of
Chris? Wait,
yeah.
Chris, you know what it is? Why we have such a big audience? Because once you say dangling carrots in front of them,
yes, dangling. So the words got out that this is now the dong dangling show.
No, I think that what it was the last time I wore this shirt, people really liked it. And then now the people that are watching now, they saw that I'm wearing the shirt again. And they're calling their
Kurt
friends.
is still hung up on that little dig from the very beginning of the show.
And they're just like,
that's
hey,
hilarious.
He finally wore the shirt again. You guys have to tune in. And now,
I might actually, All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be part of the chat, be part of the conversation, please jump into the super chats. We would love to have a little back and forth with. It doesn't have to be much. You can just give us a couple of bucks, $2, and that way I can see you light up, and I'll be able to respond to you. I really like talking to you guys, and we haven't had a lot of super chats today, so I'd love to get more super chats in there. But Jason, let's move on to the next story.
We're at 2 hours now, but all right.
Yeah, we can keep it up a little bit longer.
Headline in 6 months. So the headline in 6 months from now: why are straight white men refusing to see Dr. Who?
Okay, well, you kind of did this backwards. There was there is this whole movement on
That's how
Twitter
Dr.
right
Who
now.
Likes it. He likes it to do it backwards. But anyway, come
on. There's this whole movement on Twitter right now, a reaction against this new Doctor Who, who's this gay black guy who does a lot of like musical numbers and crap on the show Doctor Who, which is an institution in Britain. And this chick, Asiyayivya Ikakafatar, probably part of ISIS. She went on this website called Metro. I don't know what this is. I've never heard of it. She's presented this opinion. Sorry, straight white men. Doctor Who was never made for you. So she's reacting to our reaction, which is, why are you making this gay and lame? And so End Wokeness reacted to that and said, the headline 6 months from now is going to be, why are straight white men refusing to see Doctor Who? It's not just that this new doctor is a gay black man. They've also got the new villain that they've got as a trans individual. They're constantly pushing the pronoun thing on this new Doctor Who. Look, I never watched Doctor Who. That was not part of my childhood. That's not part of my life. It was never part of my life. But this kind of annoys me, this idea that Doctor Who was never made for straight white men or whatever. Yeah, kind of was, actually. Kind of was made for straight white men.
Yeah, exactly.
It was, somebody posted something really brilliant. They said it was made for children and families originally, or as family programming. Mm-hmm. This is not family programming what they've got now. This is gay propaganda is what they're doing. LGBTQ
this
propaganda.
Fool that wrote it. This fool that wrote it obviously was born yesterday. You can even see, like.
Yeah. She's one of these Muslims that love gay people, which is like, like gay people love Muslims. Muslims love gay people. Not a lot of Muslims love gay people, but she apparently does.
But that's their whole thing, man. They want to get rid of everything. Like we always say, like with Star Wars or other things, like they want to get rid of it from who it was originally intended for. They want to.
Well, I like the point that it was for families, but I want to say that like every show finds its audience eventually. Right. Every show, every movie, it finds its audience. Like comic books were written originally for children, for like little boys.
Yeah.
But in World War II, who was it that was reading most of the comic books? It was actually the men who were at war, between the ages of 18 and 40. You got these guys in the trenches reading comic books. Comic books were huge among the soldiers in World War II. They absolutely loved them. And so, this happens sometimes with children's shows. You'll get college students watching them. Like Batman the Animated Series was such a good show. You had actually college students watching Batman the Animated Series back in the 90s. I mean, I was I think in junior high school at the time. But this happens frequently. If a show is good enough, if a project is good enough, you'll get older people watching it, even if it's meant for children. And the audience that Doctor Who found was, I think, more or less nerdy, straight white guys. That was who was watching Doctor Who for generations upon generations upon generations. And then they decided to come in and go, okay, let's alienate that audience that we've developed over decades, and let's try to bring in a completely new audience. Now, of course, we all are very much aware of the concept of if you get woke, you will go broke. And that seems to be happening here. Nobody wants to watch this stupid, crappy show. The problem is, like, it's such a dumb thing to do because you're saying, we've already got this built-in audience, which is why we like this product, which is why we like this IP, intellectual property. But let's then manipulate it to express an idea that we think that people should listen to. And if that, and the thing is, like maybe in the 90s or the early 2000s, that's kind of forgivable because even though they're pushing an agenda that the audience doesn't like, they maybe thought, well, the audience will still stick with it because it's enough like the original property that they will suffer through the messaging, or maybe they won't even notice the messaging because we're giving them this entertaining product that they want. But now, two things. One, they know that we will not suffer through that crap. We will turn the show off, one. And two, they're not getting away with it in the sense, like they're not giving us enough of what we originally liked about these projects, like Star Wars and stuff.
They're giving us the medicine without the spoonful of sugar at this point. It's
exactly. Well, they're not just. It's not just that. The spoonful of sugar is now changed to a spoonful of poison, right? It's not even sugar anymore. Like, there's almost nothing that resembles the original Doctor Who in this show. They've got the police box, whatever. They've got that phone box that they travel in. So they got the Daleks, presumably. They've got some things that are sort of like iconically Doctor Who, but they've changed it so much. It's almost
bathroom booth soon.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically unrecognizable as Doctor Who. So they just call it Doctor Who. They have a couple of iconic parts of it. It's sort of like Star Wars. They made Star Wars unrecognizably Star Wars for the most part.
It's for women,
like, yeah, they're not exactly. But the thing is,
they don't watch it.
They're exactly. They're sort of gambling on the idea that even if we do alienate a bunch of fans, we're going to get a whole bunch of other fans. And they've even said that multiple times.
Yes.
They believe it.
Yeah, they believe it, but it's not true. It's not working because they didn't know for sure they were going to get those fans. They just assumed that they would, which is terribly stupid for them. We got a couple of good comments here I want to read real quick underneath in this article. This guy writes, most television and movies made after everyone in Hollywood's brains broke in 2016 is just trash. That's true. Libercrat Media TM writes, oh, for F's sake, what's next? The Little Mermaid is this big black football player looking dude. Cash Loren writes, they will be complaining that ratings are tanking and it's all straight white males' fault. Exactly right. This guy, Paul Sipula, writes, imagine being the person who green lights this project. They're burning money to be racist toward white people. Woke Hollywood can't go out of business fast enough. I mean, these like people's the reaction that people have. This guy basically did the same thing that we tend to do for this show. He created this meme that says right-wing extremism, and it's just this like happy family, happy white family. People, the response that the right has to this is, I think, not only correct but brilliant, intelligent, just absolutely fantastic. This guy, Guy Fawkes, writes, he's just a fragile black feminine man who's never been put in check by his father. Well, that's exactly right. Vince Langman writes, the crazy left destroyed Doctor Who. The reaction is just so spot on to this. And the people that want to produce stuff like this, they're so clueless. They have no self-awareness. They have no awareness of the world. And it's just sad to me that these people have so much power and control. That's all I have to say about it, which is probably more than I wanted to say. But what do you think, Jason?
England, like, we're pretty messed up here. We have but England as well, man. They're like changing their history, like making black queens and just they're extremist over there. They're BBC and all that. Like, I don't know why the people are taking that over there, but yeah,
I think this is just representative of the juxtaposition between the sort of like a public face of something and the rank and file and the citizenry. Kind of coming back to the Catholic, the Pope. It's like, is that what the majority of Catholics believe? What this guy is saying? I don't think it is. So then you have the same thing happening here, where it's just like, okay, this is what everybody thinks. This is what the representation is anything but. It's not representing the group at all.
I would say in the 90s, they used to have, Hollywood used to be able to sort of push a lot of the public into a particular way of thinking. They did this with the LGBTQ thing, with the gay thing. They're like, gay people were born that way, and everybody kind of fell in line. And I think they got really used to that. And now they just think that they're just magic and they can just push anybody in any direction they want, and society will go with it. But now you got this like very small set of extreme leftists working in Hollywood, in England, in the entertainment industry there, and they don't realize the limitations of their power, and they're going crazy, and they're just ruining property. Frodo Lives jumped in with $5, and he wrote, "They killed my beloved Doctor Who. I grew up with it." This is the kind of person that it really bothers me. Like, there is a difference between living in a delusion and enjoying some escapist fiction. I do think, right? And the left right now is going into this delusionary fantasy state where they literally live in a fairy tale world in reality. And they're stripping from us our ability to escape from the harshness of the world by indulging in a little bit of fiction. Because they're taking our fiction away from us. They want to turn everything into their version of what they want.
And your example of people fighting in a war in the trenches and reading comic books, that's for example of that. Your reality is like so severe. It's like you want that sort of like release, and it's being bastardized. Sorry.
There's very little left for straight white men in the Western world. We sacrificed almost everything for the comfort of the weak, for the comfort of women primarily. But then a lot of weak people have come in who are not necessarily women. They're gay men or whatever it might be. People who just want to have a comfortable life without working hard or enduring any kind of toughness. And they've been able to exploit this world that we've created in Western civilization that's very comfortable and very safe. And now they've decided to take charge because they don't need the tough guys protecting them, because we've created a world that's relatively safe for them. And so they've decided to take over. And I'm gonna throw up Demon Slayer's comment here. He goes, basically, the Jews run Hollywood. The Jews control the media. Put the blame where it's needed with the Jews. He says the Qs, right? But what he's saying is the Jews, obviously. But the reason I'm going to put this up, because normally I don't really like to, obviously it's a super chat. I need to put it up here. But I actually really disagree with it. I don't agree with this whole blame the Jews for stuff. I've known a lot of Jewish people in my life. Some of them are dickheads. Okay, fine. Just like every group, right? But some of them are awesome people. Jews are just like everybody else, right? Genetically, I think I saw a report once where they actually did genetic testing on Jews, like Ashkenazi Jews, and they're almost entirely German, right? They're Germans with a very specific culture. Maybe at one point, hundreds of years ago, there was some actual like Hebrew ancestry, but for the most part, they're just Germans who have a different culture. And I would say that like a lot of Jewish people are very high IQ. A lot of Jewish people are very like successful. And but for the most part, the people who are, I would say, the really, really messed up people in society who are very successful Jewish people who then get into the spotlight, get into the news, like Jeffrey Epstein, Weinstein. So there are obviously other examples, Soros, stuff like that. These guys aren't really Jewish, quote unquote. You know what I mean? They're atheists. They're these hardcore left-wing Marxist atheists who have some Jewish ancestry. Do you have hardcore left-wing atheists who have Christian ancestry, who are also very successful and also very powerful? Of course you do. But they tend to focus on the Jewish one because, look, if you have a very small group of people who are very successful, anything they do creates a great impact. And so you have this very specific group of people who are, I would say, formerly Jewish, who have Jewish, quote unquote, ancestry or culture to some degree. But these are atheists. We're focusing on the wrong problem when we say that they're Jews. The Jewish thing, I don't think really has anything to do with it. Obviously there's going to be a few people that disagree with that, but I think that this Jewish thing is a distraction. I think it's a pointless distraction. I think we need to pay attention to where the real problem is, which is this sort of, you're a demon slayer. I think the problem is the demonic atheists.
Yes.
All right, let's throw up Stephen Thompson's. By the way, my Scottish side is also Thompson, but we don't have a P in our name. So Stephen Thompson, I have a cousin actually named Stephen Thompson, which is funny. He says, I'm here for you guys. I think every problem needs to be pointed back to the solution, God's word. Discussing hypocrisy and outrageousness won't solve it. Only a revival will bring restoration. 100%. I talked about that in a previous episode. We need to bring back church. We need to bring back principles. We need to bring back traditional values. We need to make America great again. I appreciate the comments, Stephen. Anyway, you guys got anything to say about this Doctor Who stuff?
No,
I guess not. I thought you went on a perfect soundbite there, actually.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. All right. What do we got next, Jace?
That's all the news articles.
That's all the news. Oh,
we could chat now.
That's everything that's fit for print. We're 20 minutes over. How long we going to chat?
About in the comments section, please send us a super chat, and we will have a little dialogue, a little.
We're gonna riff. Okay.
A little chit chat. Otherwise, I would just like to say I had a thought today, or it might have been yesterday, but I think it was this morning. I had a thought about quirkiness and how the left likes to be quirky. You ever notice that? Like they have these little podcasts with like these sort of arbitrary themes and like dumb quirky music, and like they use xylophones for everything for those stupid videos. I don't know what that's about, but anyway, point I'm trying to make is I realized the other day that quirkiness is a substitute for bye Kurt.
Yep.
He's like, this is not an interesting conversation. Quirkiness is a sort of a substitute.
Sign on for this.
He's like, Gorka jumped in here with a text. He just texted me. He goes, Doctor Who defined my childhood. Oh shoot, hold on, I lost it. He goes, Doctor Who defined my childhood. Oldest running show in the world. Yeah, and they're just absolutely ruining it.
Me and my wife, we got into Doctor Who when it came back. It was the first when they first came back. It was with that one doctor. I forgot his name. But that first season, like, was really good. I like that doctor. Not a lot of people like that doctor, but that was like one of my favorite doctors. And we got into the show and it was all good. And then the next season would come, and then the next season would come, and then they start putting in these stupid lefty like propaganda, and then it just started ruining it for me. And then the writing started to go bad, and that's it. We never watched it again.
Right.
They always destroy everything. Like, I don't know. They do things good. Like, things start out good, and for some reason they have to put in the propaganda, the message.
It's, well, a lot of that is to be expected, because just the way that Hollywood is, just the way that the media is, just the way that the woke sort of like DEI crap was going, just trends and stuff like that. But they've gone way further than they needed to. I mean, this Doctor Who thing, like, why are you ruining franchises like Star Wars? Why are you ruining franchises like Indiana Jones? Why are you ruining franchises like Doctor Who? This is not just they don't
it's malicious.
Understand that it's malicious. Exactly. It's cultural vandalism, as they call it.
Yep.
They are trying to do this because they hate straight white men. This is not just this is not by accident. They hate us, and they're trying to ruin the things that we love. Dame Piglet jumped in with $2. She writes, should I send my mug photo via X or email? Yeah, either one. Yeah, email is probably easier. And I'll go ahead and post it on the show. Demon Slayer jumps in. He says, why are conservative politicians pushing for hate speech laws directly to protect Jews in opposition to the Constitution? Who are they representing? Well, I'll be honest, like, with that, I don't think the Jewish thing, I don't think that's appropriate, but I don't think it's appropriate because I don't think any hate laws are appropriate. Hate speech laws, right? If you say you want anybody to die, then you're breaking the law, or not that you can say you want people to die, but you can't call for you can't say, hey guys, let's go kill this group of people. You know what I mean? Like, you can go to prison for that. So I don't think there should be specific hate speech laws. I don't think there should be laws that, what do they call it? Enhancements. They call them enhancements. Like if you get, God, I think Kurt's phone died. So he needs to like,
I don't think that law has nothing to do with Jews. I think it has more to do with Christians. Like, they just used that whole anti-Semitism argument to pass that law in order to start controlling more
like hate speech laws and stuff like that I don't feel like hate speech laws are ever used against anyone really but white people, right? I mean, primarily. Like this is not like a hate speech law isn't really to protect anybody. It's to attack a particular group. You know what I mean? It's to like go after people they don't like. The whole concept of the hate speech enhancement or law, I think, is unconstitutional. I think they need to revisit that and fix that. Huff Power Concrete and Simplified Crawfish Company. Love to see you back, my friend. We love this guy. He writes, we don't know what the weather is like where y'all are, but it is some end times stuff right here. Well, I will say that the other day, my brother sent me some pictures from Oregon, where I'm from, and I was actually kind of jealous. It was about the same temperature it is here. My brother has a very beautiful swimming pool in his backyard. He bought a new house about a year ago, and he's got the most beautiful swimming pool. And every time I've jumped in that swimming pool, it is absolutely freezing. Like I feel like it's unhealthy. It's that cold. You know what I mean? It's like one of those ice baths that like pro athletes jump into, which I've never really understood. That's a really popular thing here in Bali. I jumped into an ice bath like maybe a month ago just to test it out. And I'm with this guy who does the ice baths things. And I'm like, I don't know how you do that, guy. I don't know how you do that. That to me is like, that's like unhealthy. That's not good for you, I don't think. My brother's swimming pool is similar to this. It's like that cold. But he said no, he got a swimming pool up to like 85 degrees or something. So I'm like, oh man, I want to go back to Oregon and jump in the pool hang out with you guys. So in Oregon, apparently it was really nice the last few days. So I don't know where you are, but it's pretty spectacular weather back in Oregon. How's things in Florida, my friend Jason?
Hot. The summer's finally here, and it's just hot, muggy, humid.
Hot Power Concrete Crawfish Company comes back with $2 more. He says, sorry, I'm late. My daughter had a graduation mass. Oh, that's very cool. So presumably she's going to a Catholic private school. I love to hear that. It's interesting. My brother, John, he actually moved. The reason he bought that house with the swimming pool and everything is because he wanted to move his family to a school district that was not woke. He was really worried about this. And so he specifically found a school district, sort of country school district, where there was a little bit of, they had some controversy during the COVID thing. But the controversy was that the public was very conservative. And so he had figured out, okay, this is the school district I want to send my kids to. And so he worked it out. I think my sister's kids all go to private school. But my brother specifically moved to a district where he could have a community of people that were sort of like-minded. And I respect that. I think that he's doing a good job with his kids. And kids, it's tough to raise kids these days, but it looks like Huff Power Concrete and Simplified Crawfish Company is doing the right thing with his kids. And it's tough. It's tough, man. I don't know. What are you thinking, Jason? How are you gonna deal with your son growing up? He's 2 years old now, but he's gonna be in kindergarten soon.
Oh, he's homeschooled. He's gonna be homeschooled.
You're gonna homeschool?
Yeah. So
I respect that.
I'm not worried. I'm not worried much. I always say when he gets older, and I'm going to leave this decision up to him if he wants to like go to high school, go to a public school or something.
My cousins, a lot of my cousins were homeschooled, and we always kind of thought they were a little bit too sheltered growing up. Like they weren't prepared for the real world. And it kind of ended up like that with a couple of them, but most of them actually ended up very good. Like their lives were, I would say, pretty good, and they were very good people. But it is difficult to navigate the world, I think, if you get homeschooled. I think it's gotten better, like with the community groups and things and the internet. I think you can set up situations in which your homeschool kid can interact with other homeschool kids and their parents and all that. And especially if you have like a church group or something like that, I think it can work. But homeschool, you do have to be a little bit careful, I think, because of the whole sheltered aspect. I think kids do kind of have to experience that whole difficulty of going through school. I think that is kind of important, but
that's what everybody says, but I disagree.
It seems more and more that homeschool is the better option these days. Yeah.
I disagree. I think homeschool kids, because I know a lot and I've met a lot, and they're like awesome and smart, intelligent. It's how you do it. It's, you can't just only raise them in your house alone. You have to give them a social life. They have to have a circle. You have to have a community.
Well, like I said, because of the internet, things have gotten a little bit easier to organize stuff, I think, and doing it in a way that's a little bit more socially natural for kids.
From what I see from kids in school and in public schools and all that stuff, they're pretty messed up. Like I have nephews and the things they tell me about school, and it scares the hell out of me.
Yeah, I imagine. Yes Man has jumped in with $10 in order to write the comment, "Skibbity toilet for president, skibbity dom dom dom, yes, yes." Okay. Well, we appreciate your $10, even if I don't speak scat. Do you remember that? Do you remember that song
I'd rather
from the
have
90s,
a toilet
Scat Man?
I'd rather have a toilet right now as president than Biden. I'll tell you that.
A toilet would do a better job for sure, or about the same job, really. Because I mean, does Biden really do anything?
Exactly.
I mean, I don't know if he actually does anything. This reminds me of the song Scat Man. Do you remember Scat Man, John?
Oh yeah, that's a good song. I love that song.
Yeah, that's I think that's an underrated quasi trashy classic. That was a good one. And the thing I loved about that song, by the way, is the music video. The guy looks like he's like about a 50-year-old man. It's just like this random 50-year-old white guy. And he was so, I don't know, there's something about the difference between him doing this very hip song and him looking like this very sort of like standard middle class 50-year-old white guy. That contrast was really great. That was really funny. If you want to look at the Scat Man music video, I highly recommend it.
The story behind
it's a catchy song as well.
The story behind that too is that he finally made it at like an older age. He finally made like a hit song. Yeah. And I think he died like a few years after. He didn't even really. Oh,
is that true?
Yeah.
Appreciate. Oh my God. Yeah, he was a one-hit wonder, big time one-hit wonder. Yeah. Sort of like a Bobby what was his Bobby something McFerrin? Was that his name? Where he basically had that song. Don't Worry, Be Happy. But he like made all the music with his mouth, like he made all these like sound effects with his body, and totally a cappella song. That guy was great. He became like a big star in like the early 90s. That guy was like everywhere. But he really was able to exploit the success of that one song. One hit wonders are great, aren't they?
Yeah, a lot of that from the 80s.
A lot of that from the 80s, 90s. One hit wonders. You know, the first ever #1 Billboard Top 100 rap song was actually Ice Ice Baby.
It was.
Yeah, one hit wonder. Isn't that funny? White people do everything best, don't we?
They hated that. That's why they hated the guy. Like same thing with what's the white rapper that everybody's saying he's like the greatest rapper ever, but you'll always have an argument because he's white.
Eminem, yeah.
Eminem, yeah.
Well, Eminem's a funny guy because you'd think that he would see the people that attack him. You'd see that like, the politics of the situation, like step back and look at it, and you'd think that he'd be like red pilled. But he's such a degenerate lefty. Like he's always like pushing for this BS lefty crap. It's embarrassing to watch, actually. That might be another situation where the guy's compromised. I don't know, because it doesn't make any sense to me in my head that somebody would be a leftist in his position.
But he has
Half Power Concrete and Semperfied Crawfish Company says he's in South Louisiana. So I think that it's probably quite hot and unpleasant, like where you are. Sorry, I just interjected that real quick because it was a super chat, but you can go on.
No, I was going to say, he has to be a leftist, I think, because if he goes conservative or he goes towards the right or he supports Trump, like, I think that's it for him as far as like being like accepted in the rap community or.
I don't think so. I don't think so because 50 Cent, he's conservative.
But he's black. 50 Cent is black.
It doesn't matter. He's successful enough that he could have a beef with a lot of those guys and it'd still be okay. Like another guy is Pitbull. Pitbull's conservative. Like if I think the bigger problem is probably Dre. Like because Eminem and Dre are buddies. And so I think Eminem has this relationship with Dre where he like feels like he has to be, I don't know, has to be like on the same page as Dre. You know what I mean? Because they're like, because Dre is a very wealthy guy. You know,
Yeah.
Like he was able to create this empire, not just from his music, but from his, you know, the Beats by Dre and you know, all these other products that he sells and stuff. So he's been able to build an empire beyond just the music, which is funny. There's this great YouTube video that I watched with all of Dre's biggest hit songs and the songs that he stole that from. Because what Dre would do is he would just hear a song that he liked, basically steal he wasn't sampling, he was reproducing it. So he'd repeat he'd like reproduce the music himself, but it was just stolen from another song, and then he'd rap over that, and that's how he became successful, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. You know, it shows sort of ingenuity. I'm more of an original type. I like to create original content, so that's what, like, I wouldn't do that. I have, like, to me, that's like lacking integrity a little bit for me. But I understand that is a good way of doing things. And when you turn a previously, you know, interesting bit of music into a rap, that is distinguishing enough where I think that you are creating something original. But yeah, look that up if you're interested in Dr. Dre's music and where it comes from. And also, that's also true of John Williams. John Williams stole a lot of music from classical composers. But again, you know, he did stuff with it that was pretty magical. So I think that these guys deserve respect, even though they are kind of thieves a little bit. Anyway, I think that's it for the show. I would like to continue the show just because I was having so much fun, but then Kurt disappeared. So you got any interesting insights about the world recently, Jason?
Kurt's in the chat, by the way. I see him.
Oh, is he in the chat? Kurt, brother. You can't come back. You can't hook your phone. You need a longer cable for your phone so you can plug it into the wall. We tried to get Kurt to get like a stand and a microphone and everything so he could get it all worked out and plugged in and everything, but I don't know. Didn't work. Didn't end up working. So I don't know. Well, we'll have to maybe buy him something else. But anyway, you got any other insights about the world, Jason, or should we go?
Right now, no.
Cork is like, you got enough super chats now. You should be able to buy Kurt a new phone. Kurt's got actually a pretty good new phone, so I don't know what the problem is. It always does seem to go out a little bit earlier than Kurt's got to just like figure out to charge the phone before we do the show. All right. Well,
you know what's funny? I have so much to talk about and so much to say and so much about the world to say to my wife all day long. Like, I'm bothering her constantly, but when we're on this show, like, I'm blank.
I'm telling you, there is something about putting a camera in front of people where their brains change. It's not necessarily that they freeze full on, but there is something about their brains are like self-aware. Like, they know that the camera's on them and they're going to be, they don't want to look stupid in front of like the world. And so they change. Like, I noticed this with acting when I was doing acting in Hollywood. You go into like a beginner level acting class and even advanced level acting classes. You see this, and people cannot be themselves. Like, you'll talk to them one-on-one in class and they'll be one thing, and they go do do the role, and there's no real reason for them to change their personality for the role. Like, it's basically like a normal guy, so they could play themselves essentially. But they change and they're not comfortable and they're not natural and everything changes. And it's weird. It's hard to get people comfortable in front of the camera. In fact, what I used to do, I used to have this expression. Maybe this will help you guys. I used to say this thing constantly to other actors. I would say, try to look ugly. Because what I found, like when I was working at the Trailblazers, I would shoot behind the scenes stuff. I used to work for the Trailblazers making like behind the scenes videos and stuff. And I would shoot all the players and stuff, and they were all terrible, most of them. But then sometimes I would shoot audience or like fans, audience, shoot fans, like behind the scenes fan stuff. I would ask them questions about the Blazers and stuff. And the people who were the worst were like the pretty young girls, because they always cared about their image. So as soon as you get the camera on them, they'd be like naturally talking to their friends, and then they'd be like, ask me a question. Okay, I'll answer it like this, But if you get like a sort of like a middle-aged fat girl, like fat woman, like who's like a mom or even like a grandma, she'd be like, yeah, Blazers, I don't give a F, I'll just say whatever. And they didn't care how they looked. They didn't care how they acted. They didn't care that the fat was flying. They were just great because they had they had at some point in their lives it had occurred to them that they weren't getting by on their looks, so they just kind of like gave up on that. And those people were the most natural in front of the camera. They were great. There is something about being worried that you're going to look bad, not necessarily physically, but you're going to look like unintelligent, or you're going to look, physically ugly or whatever. And actually, when I was doing my acting classes, I would actually sometimes I was acting like too natural, to where I would stutter too much, or I'd mess up my lines, and I didn't care, or I'd shift, like my eyes would kind of be shifting around thinking about something, because I was trying to experiment with different things to do that. Oh, I lost my camera. I was trying to experiment with things to do that made me seem more natural, and sometimes I went too far, actually. But that's the opposite problem that most people have. All right, hold on. Let me throw out another battery in there. You could say something, Jason.
I was going to say, since Kurt's not here, I take advantage of it, right? And I was going to say, I guess Kurt doesn't need to try to be ugly.
Oh, bam. Bam. Well,
that's somebody's not here. You got to take advantage of it and just go off on them.
Well, that's the problem, is like, Kurt's not a bad looking guy. Kurt's not a stupid guy. Kurt's not an uncharismatic guy. So I think he's got too much going for him. So like once the camera goes on, you know what I mean? Like if you don't care what people think of you, you're good. But I think even like Kurt, like in real life, he seems to be able to say whatever, and he's like good. He doesn't care what people think of him. But as soon as you get that camera on people, I don't know, man. It just changes your brain.
Yeah.
It's really hard to fix that. Really hard. Gorka just wrote, okay, that's it. I'm buying Kurt an extension cord and a bigger battery. Kurt, you have a philanthropist here. I love it.
But that's like one of the first things you buy when you get a cell phone. You got to buy like a extra long cord.
Kurt is technologically inept. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't know anything about technology. He doesn't know anything works. And things always mess up for him. So that's just part of life. Anyway. All right. Well, that's going to be it for today's show. I could carry on for the next 10 hours. I just love talking to Jason. I love talking to Kurt. I love talking to people in the super chats and in the regular chat. I love talking about life. I love talking about our toxic masculinity, but eventually these shows do have to end. So we're going to see you guys next Thursday, and be sure to watch Gorka and I on Rumble, or listen to us on the radio, Salem Radio Network, our show Making Movies Great Again. The next show we're doing, I think we're on this week. Sometimes we have to skip a week, but this week we're doing, what are we doing? We did The Fugitive last week, which was great. And this time we're doing Gladiator. That's going to be a fun one. What's your opinion of Gladiator? Are you a big fan?
When it came out, I didn't like it.
Yeah, I was not the biggest Russell Crowe fan, but the funny thing is, I saw it at a time when the people that I was going to the movies with, I didn't really like many of them. Like I was in a friend group. I was in a friend group with a couple of people I really didn't like. So they kind of soured my mood a little bit that day. I remember very specifically going to see that in the theater. But I'd like to see it again, because I haven't seen it since then.
Yeah, I don't like when they like kind of modernize history or remake history. I don't like that. Like,
do you think Gladiator was not authentic enough?
Yeah, but then again, it's a movie, and if I were to compare it to movies today,
exactly.
It's
well,
I
say that often when we do our reviews with Gorka, when we're doing our reviews, I often say, like, back in the 80s, I think this would have been considered like a lesser film. But today, looking back in hindsight, it's so much better than anything that is made today that you got to go, all right, you know what? This is actually classic. This is actually amazing.
That's
you have a new appreciation.
Like, that's the thing. We come from that era of like these amazing movies. They were so good. Like you would go to a movie.
We were spoiled. It's an embarrassment of riches. Yeah, we were spoiled completely.
And now you're like realize how good I'll rewatch movies that I thought were bad. Exactly. And then I'd be like, you know what? If I compare it to today's movies, it's actually an amazing movie, you know?
Exactly. And
I guess
that's why I'm really looking forward to seeing this
movies
again.
at the time. I was comparing those movies to like these amazing movies that we were watching.
Exactly.
But they were like, hey, these movies are actually all right, you know?
Because they fell short compared to the best movies of that era.
Yeah.
But they're not. But I'm curious to see how I react to this film this time. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this one again. But yeah, watch Making Movies Great Again. It's a bit of fun. We got to go through movies and kind of break them down and go through the sort of the intellectual stuff, the emotional impact that they have on us, our nostalgia for them, and what made them great.
The whole wheat scene, the hand going through the wheat, that's like an iconic
cinematic genius
that everybody does now. Everybody sees
exactly
the wheat, and I'm like, oh God, please.
Well, I think there is something really magical about having a great camera and a great lens, and just getting really beautiful footage. There's just something nice about that. But the equipment is so advanced now that they can actually get these kind of beautiful, long cinematic shots, even in like reality shows. Like if you watch something like Survivor, that's the transition between, showing the tribe and showing like them going to tribal council or whatever it might be. They get these beautiful shots of like the environment or whatever. So it's not restricted just to the cinema anymore. So that's another problem that cinema is competing with, just like reality shows and like people can produce amazing cinematic stuff just for their YouTube channels. I obviously don't do that, but I used to have like I used to have a moving camera that I would cut to on the show, and they would but I cut that out because it was a lot of work, and I didn't think anybody really cared as much as I did.
I appreciate it.
And I used to experiment with different lenses and stuff, and people didn't seem to care. They just wanted to hear what I had to say, so I ended up kind of dumping.
I was probably the only one, right? I remember always.
There was a couple of guys. I have another buddy who's like a cinematography guy, and there was like a few people who cared, but most people didn't give a crap. So I kind of cut that all out. What was funny is that I noticed that like the mic that I bought, the moving camera that I used to use, a lot of the stuff that I used to do, that this was before anybody did any of that kind of stuff. It was all adopted by the Daily Wire. Is it the Daily Wire? What's Ben Shapiro's stuff?
Yeah, Daily Wire.
Yeah. Ben Shapiro's
you're right.
Guys, they all adopted all the stuff that I was doing, and then I dropped it all. So I sort of inadvertently improved those guys like massively. But yeah, at the time that I was doing all that stuff, everybody was like, "Chris, you got the most cinematic show on YouTube," and then I dropped it all. I would like to do that kind of stuff, but it's not really.
I used to tell you that. I was like, "Why you left the whole cinematic stuff?"
Yeah. It's because I started traveling and I didn't really have the option. I still have a good camera. I actually prefer vintage lenses. So like the lens that I have on here is an old Russian lens that actually gives you this weird swirly bokeh if I have the right background. So it's a really cool.
Wasn't I the one that recommended that one?
No.
Yes.
You recommended to me after I already had one.
Okay. All right. I'm not going to say anymore.
I've had this lens for a long time. What you recommended was was some kind of like makeshift.
No, it was a Russian
anamorphic.
Lens. Yeah, it was a Russian lens.
The one. Yeah, I know that, but what you had recommended was the Russian lens that had been modified to make it look like an anamorphic. Do you remember? With like the string.
Yeah, but it's the same lens. It's just that they changed.
It's the same lens. They modified it. Yeah, but I already had this lens. A long time.
It's a beautiful lens.
I've been using. It's like, what is it called? Like the Helios 44
Helios
2 or something like that. Yeah.
Yep.
Helios. Yeah, I got this lens many years ago, but I love it. It's probably my favorite lens that I have. But I had brought with me when I was traveling all of my like really good lenses, and at the end of the day, it was just silly because this lens is just as good as the rest of them, and they're like it's like little. So I just kept this one, sent the rest of them back to my folks. So I got all my lenses back home. I got so much equipment back home. It's ridiculous. Anyway, all right, we're getting into silly conversation now. Just talking about random stuff. So I think it's probably a good thing that we just knock off for the day. I love doing these shows. I never want to stop the show, but it has to end at some point. So I'm just going to remind everybody to buy our Toxic Masculinity merch from our merch store, because you know what? It's good. It's interesting. It's cool. Otherwise, just jump on Patreon, give me some money there so we can keep trying to save the world. I'm trying to get these guys a little bit in the money so that I'm not just ripping them off every week, just having them come on and do the show. But anyway, love you guys in the chat. Thank you for all the super chats. We'll see you next time. And remember, it's not that all the friends are ignorant. It's just they know so much that is not so. All right. Good night, everybody.